magic, like fallen angels, stars.
Oh yeah, this gets into a whole thing about like corporate logos and why did the media companies like, oh my god, guys, we could have a discussion on this. My god, I had no idea you were even into it.
We're gonna have like a conspiracy marathon, I think.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. Conspiracy. Which
641 watch.
Which hat do we wear?
Oh, he's got the hat. All right.
The Sherlock. We got the Sherlock hat,
man.
right? Or if we're going to talk conspiracies, I suppose we should put on the top hat, right? Or
I've already got
the Sherlock hat. Elongated, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. This one's the best one.
The Faraday cage around the dome.
I've only got a jester's hat, man.
Yeah. Well, you need the Indiana Jones hat, or you need the tinfoil Dora. I've got a tinfoil fedora.
You've got a tinfoil Dora. Oh my god.
My tinfoil Dora will amplify, and it will collect as well.
Oh my goodness, CAmbell. That's not real? Is that real?
Can't really
oh wow! I didn't see that. Wow.
I
have to change my screen, or
that actually exists.
Yeah, man.
Oh my god! I thought that was like a cover or like a streaming effect.
Listen,
it's a Gesticap.
It's a Gesticap, man. Even bills.
We got the cowboy.
So there you go.
And I got the shout out to
God, everyone's got hats.
Brand. We'll do the little brand toque there.
And
welcome, Gerald. Good day, Gerald. Gerald's a major part of the real science that we do, and he wants to actually incorporate these vortex coils and the geopolymer aspects and take it to the next level. And also you're already charging in mung beans right now with pulsing your coils and the electroculture experiments.
They're actually growing right now. What's that, CAmbell?
That's the question.
Illuminati confirmed. Shriner hat.
Love that, eh?
He's the Grand Poobah.
The Grand Poobah, yeah.
Well, good to meet you, Dutch. I'm overwhelmed. Like, you're awesome, dude. I've been watching you since you had maybe 400 subscribers. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you, man.
Awesome work.
Dude,
awesome.
Thank you.
That was 6 channels ago too, remember?
It was. You know what? I said I was going to get that article from NASDAQ, but hearing that you're working on geopolymer, what is it again? You're doing geopolymer for power storage? Is that what it is? Or
well, as soon as I get my formula right on geopolymer, I'm actually going to be building a replica of a pyramid that works, because I have vortex coils already, which is kind of like the fire within, if you want to look at it that way. So what I'm going to be doing is placing a specific type of geometrical coil inside the pyramid that's built with geopolymer, and I'm going to see if it resonates in a way where it'll create more energy of a working battery system than just basically a tomb is what they believe it is. So that's my goal anyway. That's what I'm working on.
That's cool.
That is really cool. I can't wait to see what the results are. And obviously, if it works, that's just phenomenal.
Well, as of now, the vortex coil that I've chosen for it, I can take a 12-volt 1-amp wall plug, and I can light up a 150-watt LED grow beam at maximum for literally like 12 watts. So that coupled with the geopolymer acting as a battery resonator, maybe get some more output than what I'm getting now. So that's the goal.
That's huge. That's huge. Even if you're generating 1 watt, even 1 watt out of it would be phenomenal. So, that's just wow. I'll if you want to talk off here, I'd be happy to talk with you too. I've got something I'd like to share with you. I've got a video I made called Wireless Power Printed on Paper, or just Power Printed on Paper. And it has to do with layers and electrons, valence electrons and so forth. but it might come in handy for you if you want to use it. I'll give it to you. I put it out there for the world to use. I'll give you the formula and how to make it and everything.
You give me the formula, and if it works, I'll give you a working machine once it's complete. There you go.
No way.
I could use as many LED lights as possible.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, now I did an experiment yesterday, and this is something I've got on video. I haven't released yet, but I'm going to release in the very next few days. I can
right now, right here.
No, I can't do it right here right now. It's on my separate camera, so I can't. I got to upload it on my laptop. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but I'm now lighting LEDs, which is the bank of 4. The strip that you see in one of the videos, it's probably about 80 watts of LED. Then I'm lighting another 15 watt LED bulb, as well as running that power into a transformer that's charging a 12 volt battery, all off of 8 watts. So I'm playing with it, and it's amazing tech. It's going to be released for free. I'm going to go after the market of people that can't build them or don't want to build them themselves, but all the plans and everything and how to build them will be released for free so that anyone that wants to build them themselves can. So I've been doing tutorials. Those will be getting released on Bernie's channel because I promised him. So he's got the scoop, but that's coming. So I'm almost there.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. I mean, who wants to be a billionaire? Honestly, like, if you really think about it, like, who would really want to be a billionaire? With more money comes more problems. So, billionaire would suck. So it's better.
They only let you have that much if they have something else on you. Like that's what I mean.
If you're getting free land, free electricity, growing your own food, you don't need $1 billion, do you?
Well, that's the other part of it too. The electroculture. If we prove it in these experiments that I'm doing now, from what I learned in the past and what I'm doing now, and all the old data that I've gotten from all these newspapers, just blows my mind. We're going to be able to grow food 1/3 quicker with almost double the output, at least at 60%.
Wow.
So that's going to help a ton of people once they these experiments complete, if they're conclusive. Again, right now they're experiments.
And it's also less water, no fertilizer and less water too, isn't it?
Yes, big time. Yeah. And it can all be stem from atmospheric electricity. You could use a little solar panel to start it. It's so easy how this can be put together. So one step at a time, but again, when those experiments are conclusive, then again, that's another aspect to this tech. So my belief system is when it comes to the pyramids, when they were operating, and I'm sorry if I'm taking up the spotlight here for a moment, but when they were operating, they acted as power systems that ionized the air at the base of the pyramid. And with the ebb and flow of the River Nile, which was much closer to the pyramid at the time, because of what's underneath the pyramid, which is basically a huge piezoelectric crystal, when the ebb and flow of the water would come up from the waxing and waning of the moon, it would create that pressure and high voltage within the pyramid, and the whole high voltage coupled with breaking water from into hydrogen and oxygen, the flow of the gas turning into plasma with the sound coupled with the resonance of the actual geopolymer of the pyramid itself, acted as an ionization for the whole ground area, like a big electroculture system, and the water acted as the negative. So it was almost like a Garden of Eden surrounding all the pyramids when they were in operation. That's part of it.
If they remove the water, that would turn them off. Yeah,
and there was a couple other reasons why they shut off. Like if you go back into the history books of when, I wouldn't say history books, you'd have to actually go into the Bible, and you go to Moses when he took the Israelites out of Egypt. He also took the Ark of the Covenant. At least that's theory.
Which so also fit exactly inside the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid.
which, because of the way it was built, would act like a giant capacitor.
The capacitor, yeah, exactly.
On that point, it would facilitate the pulse within the resonance of the pyramid itself. So
okay, so that could kill it as well. So it was yeah.
So that's part of the theory. I'm gonna kind of release that out all in a series of videos in the near future. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that.
I think you're right, Gerald. You know, I just wanted to show you something that I put it into the chat room while we're talking here, but you mentioned
bring it up on screen. Let's all see.
Oh, I will. I'll bring it up here on screen right now. Check it out. Look at this. This is now. First of all, you mentioned the capacitor and the water flowing. It's just into St. Louis, Missouri, for instance. Here in St. Louis, here's a plan of the French from the 1790s showing St. Louis downtown. And on the north side, look which way the north is. So north is pointing to the right. But in the north side of St. Louis, we have an old star fort where they're building the Geospatial Agency now, which I showed at the start of this broadcast. This is where the Geospatial Agency is being built now in 2023. And you'll notice that around it is water, and it's flowing out and then falling down a waterfall where they have a bridge. And then it goes down to the Mississippi River. Now, the St. Louis Arch has been built right here along the river, and right across the river are the Cahokia Mounds with their whole layer thing going on with the multiple layers.
Earth batteries.
Right. Now, the flowing water is a big thing because this star fort here has been hidden. Now, why would the U.S. government come in and build all these bases in the middle of each one of these star fort shapes when it's so obvious now? The flowing water thing ties in. This also ties in with ghosts. I'm not into, ghost hunting, but I did do ghost hunts before. And I know that there's all kinds of talk about flowing water and spirits and all kinds of stuff like that. So there's something to this.
Water holds memory.
Yeah, exactly. And they could possibly be an electrostatic formulation of, say, like a plasma. But due to the memory in the water and the water creating the electrostatic flow by going past the geopolymer that could have some sort of property in that sense, it could actually create a spot where you would see that as an apparition, but really it's a plasmatic form of memory that comes from the water. It's just a thought.
I like that, actually. That resonates with me. So it's like plasma and water, or plasma conscious memory taking form out of the memory of water.
I don't know if it's conscious. Think of it more like a snapshot of a moment in time that's repeated due to those
formerly conscious moment. A recorded conscious moment, a flicker, essentially.
That kind of seems more realistic. I don't know. Again, it's just a thought.
Yeah, it's like those ghost cameras they used to have. In the 1800s, you've seen those, all like like they're mirrors, and they get like apparitions and ghosts in them, like these weird machines they had.
Yeah, that's
seen those pictures.
I've never looked into that.
That's interesting. Yeah, it'll pop up now. Sorry, what were you saying there, Mr. Dutch? Mr. Synth.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Either or. The ghost thing. I'm not trying to get too weird on us or anything, but on the ghost thing, that the Victorian mansions are the mud flutters, right? So we've got the Victorian mansions, we've got the mud flutters, we've got the use of what you could call, what would you want to call it? Some kind of geometry? Yeah, I don't want to call it sacred geometry because that gets a little,
but
a different
that's
realm.
why it is sacred. It's the geometry that is the structure of the universe, energy, matter, and the realm.
Geometry gives off a field, like certain different fields and stuff based on the shapes. Yeah.
This could
kind
explain
of goes to the theory of what you're finding, Dutch. You're finding geometrical energy forms that were literally turned into matter of previous civilizations and how they operated, maybe on some sort of a subconscious level. I don't know, but what you're finding is absolutely amazing. So
it could be the long skulls have a resonance. It might be something as simple as a longer wave in your skull, and a standing wave in your skull or something. I mean,
Possible.
with the
That's
switch
how
with
they're
the Egyptians-
telepathic.
Yeah, definitely, like telepathy. But it wouldn't be mystical telepathy. It would be scientific telepathy. There'd be a reason behind it. There'd be some reason that would happen. That would explain why they were special, why they were the kings and queens, why they had the long skulls.
Yeah.
They were literally projecting their thoughts, and it's just possible.
Domes. And then what do they put on the top of all the cathedrals and basilicas? Are domes, right? What do they call bald men? Chrome dome.
Hey, chrome dome, that fits with a lot of church steeples have mercury in the steeple tip, right?
Yes,
You guys know this
in the
about the
balls.
mercury?
Yeah. Mercury,
Now this fits with something Paul Cook found, which was the mercury arc rectifier.
Yes.
The rectifier converts AC, the radio wave, into
Yeah.
DC
Yeah.
for use.
And vice versa.
Yeah, DC to AC, the rectification, right? And that gets
And
in
it
with
self-rectifies so it never burns out. That's the other crazy part about that mercury rectifier. And then they were
And of
old.
course, now mercury's illegal because it kills you, right? Even though kids used to play with it in their hands in the 60s, now it's suddenly deadly.
Yeah, same with uranium, right? Like, radioactive. It's supposedly
it's like
lead. Lead
and
is
where
in
did we
Earth.
get radiation from? Like Marie Curie, right? Mercury.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh hey, I didn't
Mercury.
realize that. Wow.
yeah.
know
Now
that.
Marie Curie, yeah. it's everywhere. It's all spelling right. They tell us, man. They tell us. We just got to work it out.
In your face. It's straight up in your face. It's like Woodrow Wilson being president during World War I, right? Like Woodrow Wilson, Calvin Coolidge, Franz Ferdinand, they're all double letter names. It's like, wait, that's World War I. Like, World War I, Woodrow Wilson, Calvin Coolidge.
World War One, where they had planes, flying around that were invented literally 3 years prior, and then suddenly they had machine guns mounted on them and planes everywhere, and it's just dumb.
The plane story. You guys know I found a steam-powered plane, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Built by Langley. Look this one up. Search Langley. That first aircraft carrier is named after this guy. It's hidden in history.
We demand you are the screen hog today, so you've already got it. You just post it up, please, for us to see.
All right, let me get it here. Let me search Langley steam powered airplane. Now this was years before the Wright brothers. So let me get this on screen here. Hold on. This is funny. I can't believe I'm going down this rabbit hole. Yeah, I wasn't planning on it, but
hey, here with the mud flood, his story. Reset Tartarian Starfort community. We need some steampunk in here, and
so first of all,
powered plane before the Wright brothers.
Right, and the pictures of this thing flying in the sky were taken by Alexander Graham Bell. So it was hidden, right? And now it was powered by steam. And they launched it from a catapult to get it going. But once it was up, it kept going as long as you have water in there. And it had a condenser that would pull water out of the air and put it back into its tank so it could keep flying through the moist air. And they fly through the clouds to collect more water, to put into the condenser, to give itself more steam, to turn it and keep going. And they said it was, 1896. Look, first genuine success on May 6, 1896. Whoops.
I'm looking for that mercury rectifier right now in the drive that's been put together for old technologies. So I've also read somewhere that there was an actual electric plane in 1916. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
I believe that.
Wow.
Hey,
how
about the
Tesla electric bike? Oh yeah, that's the one. Is that New Mexico? That's
this is the Ukraine Great Wall of star forts here, and so let's just take a 5-minute bathroom break or smoke break for whoever needs.
Yes,
and I'm going to play this clip, and it's this clip right here. Is you play it through Twitter, and it blocks the ads and actually gives you higher quality audio and video than playing through YouTube itself. And as you can see right here, that is that same geometry of these, what they call the bastion fort or the battery star fort here. And this is a buried one, and that we're going to show here that you find one about every mile along this wall for thousands of kilometers across the Ukraine and Siberia, the former Tartaria, and that these are the same basic battery geometries and fundamental fractal geometry that Dutchsinse has been pointing out to us over and over again throughout this. And here's a bigger wall. We dubbed it the Great Wall of Tartaria because it's through the actual areas of the maps, Siberia, that used to be called Tartaria, and that there's literally no history for these. And you have the foundation of America, the
There's
said her name earlier
sign,
in New York. The
Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty was built off the base of one of these, and then there's like a wall thousands of kilometers long of buried ones of these with no history across the current flashpoint of Crimea off the Dnieper River and through Siberia, aka Tartaria.
And thank you to everyone who has donated today. Thank you.
I recently found one up north, actually, that we should go over later. After the break, of course.
Alrighty.
I just posted into the chat room for anybody who wants to see it. World War II drones and B-17 bomber remote control airplanes that I found, that they flew through the nuclear tests out at the Bikini Atoll, and that they had full-on drone B-17 bombers in World War II with no people on them. And I just posted the article. You can go see it. They got pictures of it all flying around and everything. They had fully remote controlled drone B-17 bombers in World War II.
We've got a bot in one of the chats. I don't know whose it is. Can mods get rid of that, please? Some sex Tinder chat thing.
We're getting attacked by the freaking porn bots.
I think it's yours, not my channel.
Sexy time, guys. Paul was here. Paul was here, and look what happens, man. I'm telling you, the guy brings it out.
Paul
make everybody sweat.
My crypto alchemist. Did they attack it all at once? Interesting. That's why I literally make everybody in my live chats moderators, because the porn bots were so bad for a while that they're relentless. So you make everybody mod, they can't get out there. And it's ridiculous because once you start making a bunch of people moderators, then they will delete anybody else that they have a disagreeing volume.
Indeed. All right, press play. I'll be back.
And if we come back,
I'll be right back too. I guess I'm going to have a quick break as well.
Me as well.
We'll get into this wall as well.
Yeah, so this is what we dubbed the Great Wall of Tartaria. And that we'll be getting Olaf, the Sverker channel, Olaf, to come on with us to do a full presentation of it, where it begins in the Black Sea, across all of the Ukraine, and then across all of Siberia into the Russian Arctic Ocean. And this is just the middle of Ukraine.
And you'll see, I mean, this one, you know, is very, very hard to sort of point out, but there are, you can see sort of a bit of a star point there and down here. And that's been marked because Olaf, he's got a YouTube channel, Olaf the Sverker. He was getting the old maps of this area and overlaying them on Google Earth. And then, you know, the old maps would show where these stars were. And then he would, you know, overlay the map, and he'd find in a lot of circumstances these old stars. Because, I mean, you know, otherwise, imagine just randomly trying to search for this stuff. Because look, here's another one, right? Look at that imprint in the ground. I'll just wait for it to buffer a bit, but you can still see this star. And it looks like there was a bit here they couldn't get rid of. It's still sticking out the ground. But again, they've just put a farm over the top of it. You know, and there's all these other, you know, interesting, you know, circles and bits and pieces in the ground as well. And of course, always, you know, next to waterways and things.
Everybody can hear
and
the
some of
good,
them
right?
do have like fortress names and histories, But as we go through and we've discovered, and Olaf has discovered, especially as it gets into Russia on the other side of Ukraine, that there's not even official histories for lots of these forts along this wall.
You can see this one was obviously the foundations were a bit too big and a bit too high, so they've just gone around it. But you can see, we can see a bit more in this one. We can see this point below it, which is called a cavalier. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure it's a cavalier. And if they're attached to the fort, they're called bastions. You know, this is all obviously talk about when they're war. But another thing, you know, a lot of these forts, you know, the army and the armed forces, they call them batteries, right? But then, of course, all the troops come out and charge. So, you know, we think there's a lot hidden in the language as well, as far as what, you know, what the function of these things were. But if we come down here, we'll start to see this wall that just appears out of the landscape, and the same features. We get these, you know, we'll call them bastions, these, you know, pointy spear tips.
Also petals.
The same kind of stuff that we see here. Petal, yeah. Petals is probably better. That's what Olaf is calling them. You know, petals is much nicer, right? Much
and
less
they're the
violent.
exact same shape and wall as, for instance, the map that we showed of New York City, the Wall Street, that wall. This is the same identical infrastructure petal bastion wall that is Wall Street, yet it's the other side of the world, and no real official history of wall itself was, or when it was built.
Oh, did we just lose Bernie? Okay, so
I've got my camera off just to try to preserve bandwidth.
Oh, you keep cutting out a bit there. Okay, so we're just following this wall. Now, if Google would be nice, you'll see. So here, we get these pointy bits along this wall, and there's another one there. They seem to be pretty equidistant, and like Bernie was saying, these are the exact same features we see in all the star cities, and we saw in that picture of New York. On Wall Street was this exact same kind of wall, and we don't even know, you know, why they have these, you know, bastions, these pointy bits, but they're everywhere. They're equidistant along all these old structures. And this wall, and you can see how old it is. You know, there's literally just remnants of it left. You can still see it. There's another pointy bit, and there's a big one, which probably means there's a star close by. And it just keeps going, always close to water. And then up here, see, it starts again. There's another pointy bit. So again, like Bernie was saying, there's no narrative at all as to who built this. You know, and this thing is a massive, massive construction. Still going down here, you can see another pointy bit. Down here. Oh, and look, there we have another star fort. A star just sitting in the middle of nowhere, right? And again, they've had to go around this one rather than covering it up because the base is obviously too big. So you can see that there's a connection between these walls, these stars, and as I've been mentioning, they're always close to water. Now, you can kind of see the remnants of the water here. This place as well has been bombed. It's been carpet bombed. You can see, like, if we go down to places like, it's probably not the best one, but in some areas, it's literally just pitted with holes. But you can see all the markers for this wall. It just keeps going and going. And here's another star, right?
Just
but no narrative as to who built
over.
these stars. So it's like we've been saying, this is the same stuff that you can find in, you know, the Americas, in Africa, in Europe. You know, it's the same stuff. That's why we keep saying it's built by the same civilization, right? Like, there's a bit of the wall there you can see. It's just, and you know, we sort of spent, you know, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours doing this, but with more time, we're pretty sure that this would map right across, because when I pull out, the same stuff is up here. So no doubt this system goes, I mean, and no doubt it just spreads out and goes everywhere, I would think. But up here, you know, we see these same canals and these same, you know, star forts and things up in, what's this? Is this the Baltic Sea?
Yeah, this just off of the Baltic.
Be the Sea of Tartaria, didn't it?
Right behind.
Oh, that's the Baltic there, yeah.
Yeah, is that either St. Petersburg? Yeah, behind St. Petersburg. But so this canal system through St. Petersburg actually goes through the rivers, connects to Moscow.
Sorry, I paused it there. I'm seeing your comments and requests. I will be posting all the links for Gerald's channel for this video and everybody else's. I'm just going to finally run to the washroom quickly as we wait for everyone else to get back. There's about 5 minutes left in this current video, and then we will take it to the next topic. Love you all, and enjoy the rest of this clip.
Then goes south all the way down to where we were going through the Black Sea and Azov Sea and the Dnieper system there. And right there, that's a prime example of
an old star.
Exactly, that entire coast. And it's,
yeah. And this is an interesting one. I think this is probably partly because of you know, water levels rising. It's this canal. It's right on the coast.
And surely some of the canals are newer developments and newer infrastructure, but it's that when there just has to be comparative research of bringing up all of the old maps, sourcing them, and you'll be shocked at how many times there's actually even more canals in the ancient older maps than even do exist today, and you end up finding dried up ones and everything. It's just mind-boggling each time we go in.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, you know, some of this is new, and some of, you know, they've done, you know, some retro work and that, but the old system itself is, you know, is definitely old world, because, you know, it's not complete. You know, it sort of goes along, then you find some covered up bits, and then it just sort of pops out somewhere else. But they obviously, you know, are tying into it, you know, where they can use it. But I mean, so yeah, this is, look, if you look at this area, if Google will let us, I mean, you can sort of see, it just looks like it's been decimated by something. Like the landscapes you see out here, they're just very strange. Not that Google's been very helpful. And there's these just like pitted with holes and stuff. Like down here, you see all these just sort of random kind of holes, and they're just sort of everywhere. So it looks like this whole place was literally bombed out. You know, look, I mean, look at this landscape. All these,
right, and it's
very strange.
Like Alaska and the Yukon as well, and then all of the Siberian coast. And they claim that it's from this glacial ice scarring. But when you go into some of these ancient maps that we'll go through at the end here of Tartaria in the northeastern Siberia, any former civilization, yet you'll see these castles and these cities all marked on these rivers and stuff. And then when you go through on Google Earth, it just looks like these massively blown out, bombed out former ruins and war zones.
It really does, and Google's not eyeing on that. Let's have a look. But this kind of stuff, just these kind of random, you know, holes everywhere. It's just all over this region, but also these lines in the ground. I mean, that could be a road, but look at this. This looks like a big foundation of some kind of big building. And even when we come in on these cities, we get this look where they all kind of splay out from a centerpiece. That's another thing, is all the cities, they seem to be laid out in the same way. There you go. So make sure you subscribe, share this around, guys. Stay awesome, and we'll talk to you all next upload. every city,
Estonia, and that it's this canal system, literally from where we are right here in the Black Sea, the Azov Sea, at the edge of Ukraine, travels the entire European continent, I guess, connecting the Baltic to the Black Sea. And who built it and when? It just boggles the mind.
It's ridiculous. This one, as you can see, like all dead straight, but it just goes on forever. And they enter, oh, come on, Google, they enter lakes often, and different sort of water features, and then they just pop out the other side and keep going. Oh, come on, Google, it's not being nice, but you can see it coming all the way down here, and it just keeps going. And this, when you look at it, this is a massive infrastructure. You know, it's huge, the amount of territory it covers, and they're just going, you know, winding through all this farmland, nothing around them. And as you can see here, they have these lakes, and they'll come in one side down here, and then they just pop out the other side. So this was a fully integrated system, you know, of water, and we don't know, but we think that the water was something to do with, you know, the power, the electricity or something, or at least, you know, the frequency. You know, obviously water is current, right?
But
just like electricity, but
the
you see them
infrastructure
connected
of the
up with the
travel and
stars.
trade too, right? That they had these full of water highways across the entire world that they had built at a time that they shouldn't have been able to even measure the ground to be stable to do this. It's crazy.
It is. Now look at this. So this is, can you see the imprint here of this star in the ground? And clearly
we have the imprint of another star.
Just so everybody knows, when I'm typing in chat, it's putting what I'm saying,
so this
Dutchsinse,
has just been leveled,
and
it's just
being said by
on the top of it.
everybody, including Burning and
Xertus
Zertus and a bunch of other people. I don't know why it's doing that, but just so you know, they're not.
And there's more along this
they're
line.
not
So you can
typing
see,
what I'm typing.
How old that is. It's
like we're not all typing the same thing at once. Just letting everybody know that. I don't know why.
There's a wall that connects all these, that goes along next to this man-made canal system. So, you know, we're finding all this stuff, and it's all connected. Here's another one, right? This imprint of this star, and they've just built a farm over it. But that's clearly a star, you know, what they want us to think is a star fort. Just the foundations of it. And if we come back, I mean, you can see there's a line of stars here, but we'll get into this wall as well.
Yeah, so this is what we dubbed the Great Wall of Tartaria, and that we'll be getting Olaf, the Sverker channel, Olaf, to come on with us to do a full presentation of where it begins in the Black Sea, across all of the Ukraine, and then across all of Siberia into the Russian Arctic Ocean. And this is just a segment of it off of the Dnieper River in the middle of Ukraine.
And you'll see, I mean, this one, you know, is very, very hard to sort of point out, but you can see sort of a bit of a star point there and down here. And that's been marked because Olaf, he's got a YouTube channel, Olaf the Sverker. He was getting the old maps of this area and overlaying them on Google Earth. And then, you know, the old maps would show where these stars were. And then he would, you know, overlay the map, and he'd find in a lot of circumstances these old stars. Because, I mean, you know, otherwise, imagine just randomly trying to search for this stuff. Because look, here's another one, right? Look at that imprint in the ground. I'll just wait for it to buffer a bit, but you can still see this star. And it looks like there was a bit here they couldn't get rid of. It's still sticking out the ground. But again, they've just put a farm over the top of it. You know, and there's all these other, you know, interesting, you know, circles and bits and pieces in the ground as well. And of course, always, you know, next to waterways and things.
And some of them do have like fortress names and histories, but as we go through and we've just Olaf has discovered, especially as it gets into Russia on the other side of Ukraine, that there's not even official histories for lots of these forts along this wall.
They're a bit too high, so they've just gone around it. But we can see a bit more on this one. We can see this point below it, which is called a cavalier. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure it's a cavalier. And if they're attached to the fort, they're called bastions. This is all obviously talk about when they're war. But another thing, a lot of these forts, the army and the armed forces, they call them batteries, right? Batteries. And then, of course, all the troops come out and charge. So, we think there's a lot hidden in the language as well, as far as what the function of these things were. But if we come down here, we'll start to see this wall that just appears out of the landscape, and the same features. We get these, we'll call them bastions. These, pointy spear tips.
Also petals.
The same kind of stuff that we see here. Pedal, yeah. Petals is probably better. That's what Olaf is calling them. Petals is much nicer, right? Much
and
less.
They're the
violent.
exact same shape and wall as, for instance, the map that we showed of New York City, the Wall Street, that wall. This is the same identical infrastructure petal bastion wall that is Wall Street, yet it's the other side of the world, and no real official history of what the wall itself was or when it was built.
Oh, did we just lose Bernie? Okay, so
I've got my camera off just to try to preserve
bandwidth.
bandwidth.
We just regained Bernie, and Bernie's been posting the links in the live chat for everybody. We got CAmbell back, we got Dutchsinse and Jill. We're all here. All right. What did you guys think of that one? Catch a little bit of that?
I could go on for 2 hours on everything that you guys said there. I mean, the giant wall, the wall with the star forts along it, reminds me of the 1,400-mile-long islands out in the Pacific, that they're spaced just like that along a giant, what I would think would be wall, but ancient, absolutely ancient.
Well, yeah, we'll have to measure the distance between those bastions, and because it's probably all based on like an ancient cubit length or something, just different ratios.
Right. Like the 1,400-mile thing is really weird.
I bet it'll be divisible. It'll be divisible and like scale perfectly ratio with that 1,400-mile and 666 mile or kilometer one that you're getting. Guaranteed it will scale into it. Oh, you're muted again.
And of course, 666 is 18. With 180. Oh, it was 1,400, wasn't it? 180 was the tune, wasn't it? That's right, the frequency.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the 666 on the Antarctica, but that fits with the astronaut guy who said it was the most evil place that he had ever seen or something. It's like, okay, all right. It's getting a little weird, But, you were talking about the Starford things, and I wanted to show you something that you might not know about that's in New York City.
Yes,
and
please.
Most people just kind of gloss it over and ignore. Here we are in the Bronx, okay? And I'll zoom it out so we can see where we are in the Bronx. Yeah, as you would imagine, big projects, huge brick structures. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you around, and we're going to look at what the projects are built on top of.
Okay.
Now, okay,
yeah.
So the projects are built on top of what's called Fort Tryon. And we're told that this is the old English fort that used to exist that was here, but it's not. It's huge. It goes on for 10 miles. And
those apartment complexes are built on the foundation walls of that star fort. Like, look at that.
Yeah,
right?
You can see
have you seen the pictures of the Bronx in like the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, the crumbling Bronx.
It is.
They got destroyed, completely destroyed.
Oh, look, they blurred it out.
They literally blur out the parts, and then
Wow.
the
Wow.
parts that are closer are most
So-
likely a new facade. And the
You got-
dual word meaning of facade, it's hilarious how when it was the new found land, reclaimed land, and they refacaded all of the architecture, these old world castles and stuff.
Look at this. Your mind's going to be. Look at this. This is what the new buildings are built on top of. This, which goes. This is, yeah, again, I can't believe it. Now, you're not going to believe it, but there's old brick buildings that are on top of the Star Fort that are built new brick buildings on top of the old brick buildings that were there.
Yeah.
Apparently, even before there's brick, there's the Fort Tryon or whatever it's called, and that's a load of crap. It's not Fort Tryon. Now, I'm going through here, and as I'm going through, I found hidden structures that New York has deliberately hidden. And they've allowed ivy and other things to grow over what were there, which are giant megalithic stones of massive proportion. Now I'm going to back it out and show you where we are in New York in case you're familiar with New York. Let's bring this back due north. There's Fort Tryon.
Fort Tryon, yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go along the highway right here, and we'll show you what's really there. This is mind-blowing. They've allowed ivy to grow up on the old walls that are here, and they are old walls that are here, and some of them it started to collapse. They had to come in and clear out all the ivy to fix the wall from it collapsing and everything sliding out from underneath. And this is what's there. Now, up on top of here are a bunch of old brick. See these brick buildings here?
Oh wow!
All of these, they have castle tops on them. Every one of these.
Sorry, I got to stop you for 1 sec, Dutch. The castle parts, and that you see it's like that cobblestone wall of amalgamation, and that is castle. So that's still old world, but that's like the newest old world, the crappier facade
it's
of
smaller. It's not megalithic.
World. And that's guaranteed below that is then the geopolymer layers of the base foundation of these structures on the macro scale from probably the Atlantean, Lemurian, or giant ages, or in modern science we call it the Younger Dryas event, or the time before the last ice age, aka 12,000 years ago, aka, as Graham Hancock points out in all the work of Randall Carlson with him, of how the oceans actually rose 400 feet in only a matter of a couple years at that period in time, and that it was a massive catastrophe, and that what we dub mud flood in this research community is that there's all of these cathedrals and leftover mega structure buildings that are found, and that nowadays when they're renovated, they dig up and dig below the foundations, and that there's buried layers of even larger entrances, of windows that are covered by like tens of feet, like a couple of stories lots of the time, and that these aren't the bottom layers with these windows and bigger doors that have been covered for mud the entire time aren't even included in the original blueprints and schematics and architectural drawings of these refound, reclaimed, robber baron facaded buildings and architecture.
Yeah, they didn't build any foundations, man. It was just all old buildings.
This was already here. They built this house on top of it, an Art Deco house on top of this old, what looks like an old bridge footing. Now, when you look at that old bridge, that's massive. But here's the current new bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge. So there was an old bridge that extended off of this above the bay and harbor that went all the way across. And they tell us that's an Art Deco house. Now, this is the mind blower that nobody's going to believe. See these big, massive structures up here, these big apartment complexes? They're housing projects for the Brooklyn, for Brooklyn. These are called the Castle Point housing projects, and they're built with the bricks of the old castle that was here.
Right, the word spell again, the root words. D. Nico pointing out foundation.
Look how many there are.
Foundation.
Okay, so there was an old castle that they said was built in the 1920s by a baron of some kind, some guy's name. And they said that he tore down his castle and built all these housing projects for the poor people because he was concerned about the poor. And so these structures here with these castle tops are built from the bricks of the old brick castle that was up here that they said that they tore down to build those places.
Right, and that's just like Egypt, where they claim or they documented that they took all the stones from several pyramids down and deconstructed it and destroyed, removing several even larger pyramids. Now we've found, shout out Ancient Historia channel, Luke. Michael, you met him last time, our first stream. He was with us, the younger gay fella. But
well, I mean, Paul Cook's finding this as well with where they're reusing, and he's also finding where they're cutting up the bigger blocks into smaller ones, and that's what they're building, you know, the newer stuff with. So it's all just, you know, that's that saying, right? We're standing on the shoulders of giants, but literally, we're building on their foundations.
Or parts of them anyway.
Right, and so Luke found on the Nile, this Nazra, where the waterfalls of the Nile used to be. Now there's a giant dam and lake there, and that in fact, in all the old maps from the 1600s and all the ancient Greek testimonies of the area and their maps, right at this waterfall below it, that there was even larger pyramids than the Giza pyramids, and they were at the steeper angle like the Nubian pyramids further up at the beginning of the Nile there in Ethiopia, Sudan, but that the tallest one was 1,400 feet tall.
As tall as
that's a mountain. That's a 1,000 foot's a mountain. So
as tall as the Empire State Building it was.
Yeah, the Empire State Building.
Sphinxes.
And then we went and checked it. We pulled up Google Earth and we checked the spot right where below where the waterfall would have been, and then now it's covered by a lake. But where that 1,400 foot pyramid was, there was a giant stone quarry. It was one of the main quarries now, right where all the ancient maps and pictures depicted this 1,400 foot pyramid is now. And speak of the devil, welcome, Luke.
The thing is, they changed they changed the course of the Nile. And so what you were saying before, Gerald, about water needing to be on, you know, to rise up to set them off. If they change the course of the Nile, then they take the water, the current, right, away from it and turn it all off.
They would shut down the negative aspect of how that electrical circuit runs. My question was that Nubian pyramid, 1,400 foot high, not a question, more of a statement. That's built at 76.345 degrees angle. That would make it an antenna, almost like cell phone towers today. In fact, I kind of wonder if cell phone towers are built at that same angle.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's important.
And there's also all that research that the Russians did on the pyramids with the different angles at the top, and they were like,
I have some research on that, different angles of pyramids and the degrees and what they do and what parts of the body it heals, and very interesting stuff. Pyramids are amazing. Shape power, I guess you'd call it. There's a little more to it than that. Don't get me wrong. That's more of a subtle energy, but very interesting.
The numbers, patterns, right? Like the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, and Mike pointed out there that it's 1,400 again, that 1,400 feet, just like the 1,400 miles between all the islands.
Well, an antenna is what, 1,725 feet? So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is that not what it is?
I got to show this part in correlation. This is the Grand Canyon topographical map.
And I just didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry, bro.
Oh, okay. Hello, Luke.
Welcome, Luke. Ancient Historia. So, yeah, this is two topographical maps of the main pyramid complex section of the Grand Canyon where King Cade's discovery was reported, and where this Isis temple is. This is the closest one of the 50 pyramid marked temples that anybody can see or walk up to access. Not a lot of people know that this entire area of the Grand Canyon is not just a no-fly zone 24/7, 12 months of the year, that they actually have active denial systems for drones there. Shout out to a good friend Rex Bear at Leak Project. He's gone there a couple times, and he has it on camera where he had his drone going over trying to explore it, and then all of a sudden, just boom! They crashed it. They freaking fried it.
Well,
and then
I was just
after the on video that he has it filmed, and it's on his channel, of the Apache helicopter coming up from out of the canyon, and like they were chased out by an Apache helicopter, and they were just on the edge of the Grand Canyon, of the main site that you can look out to here and see.
What if it's a no-fly zone because it's still producing electricity and it's stuff? It was the actual area that sank the drone because it's stuffed with the electrics.
That's possible, and
why
that
is
would
there a
explain why
military
the compasses always start spinning in certain areas around these places.
There you go.
Possibly.
It's in operation then, because I'll tell you this: all the research I've done in the coils I build, they make my compasses spin, or I can direct at what pole goes where. If I want the south pole on the bottom, I can do that, or I can make it continuously spin. So that's when it's operating in like a vortex, and that's exactly what a pyramid does. It's torsion mechanics. It builds a torsion field above at the top of the pyramid itself. So if it is still operating, and you're absolutely right, a drone in the wrong spot caught that wave, be gone.
Well, the drone actually crashing, Rex believes, and there's more cases of this, that it's actually the Park Rangers National Guard and was probably a active denial drone unit on the Apache helicopter that he filmed a few minutes later that crashed it, and that they straight hijacked it and then intentionally destroyed it, where they accelerated it into the cliff sort of thing as soon as they got it. This is one of the geoglyphs, or I think this is a geoglyph, or earthenwork, whatever you want to call it, of Nazca, Peru, the same area, Dutch, that you were showing the Nazca. It was Nazca Peru skulls, right?
Yeah.
And so this is from the hill mountain there, which is now desert, down to the ocean. So this is a couple hundred feet, I believe. And it's been there, they say it's thousands of years, just as old as the rest of the Nazca lines. This is clearly a fractal ray antenna of sorts.
I was just about to say. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Straight fractal ray antenna, and it has very similar geometries to the under ocean structures that you were showing at.
Also looks like a trident.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to apologize to everyone, by the way. I'm going to sound really nasally because I've just come out of surgery 2 hours ago.
Out of surgery?
Yeah. Just I should still be at hospital actually, but
that's why Luke's not showing his face.
It's all done up.
Well, it wasn't anything to do with the other stream the other night, was it?
No. I didn't overdo it. No, I had a nose surgery planned for today, and
it was a cosmetic plan.
It's not cosmetic. It's quite functional.
Come on, you're trying to look like David Beckham, aren't you?
Oh, I'm going to come on tomorrow with a completely different nose. But it's quite awful, because at least in England, right? They kind of let you go. They're like, sign this form and you can leave, and you could have an axe in your head, and they'd be like, sign the form. It's not our problem. So as long as you sign the form, you're all right. So this rule was like, you got to stay until 5, and I was like, 5? give me the form. Signed the form, pulled the cannula out my arm. They're like, you can't do that. It's like, yes, I can. I've signed the form.
I've signed the form. You're no longer liable.
Walking out, like, covering my own blood, like, see you later, bitches. But, yeah, it was...
So
it was
if you
I might have to go, guys. It's almost midnight here and hitting 3 hours.
Fair enough. Good, Campbell.
So you guys can feel free to keep going if you want to keep going.
Okay.
Could I address one thing that everybody, before anybody goes, because there's going to be a lot of people when I play this back on my channel or whatever, and they will address it and bring up the famous excuse that everyone brings up when we're seeing a lot of this stuff, which is they try to say it's pareidolia, which is people try to say that we're seeing shapes and things and that we're not really seeing anything and that blah, blah, blah doesn't mean anything. But I would bring back up what we started talking about at the start of this whole thing, which is the military bases in the middle of each one.
And before you continue on with that and addressing exactly what you're talking about, these topographical maps of the pyramids there. So topographical map means the lowest part is this river, the base, and then the highest point is the peaks. And each of the peaks are these exact pyramids and temples that are literally called Isis temple, Hindu temple, Ra temple, and so forth. But that they perfectly align up the peaks of each of those pyramid temples in the Grand Canyon, perfectly align up to each star in the Orion constellation in the sky, as well as the other major stars in the Perseidon sky of the Orion constellation, so that there's not just it, but even more, and that it's perfect proportion, star for star, or star for peak, over 30 stars and peaks of these pyramid temple structures there. So that if you're trying to claim pareidolia or some coincidence, it's
come back, Bernie.
Absolutely.
The connection lords have spoken. Dutch, carry on.
Losing your bit of your finale there, Bernie. But this is proving that it's not pareidolia, right? That is an exact representation of what we see in the sky. So, not seeing things. All right, go Dutch. Bernie seems to have done a bolt.
There's a graphic that the Bernie has on the screen, the showing the overlay of the constellation, and people, again, they try to say that we're seeing things, but it can't be that it is that it can't be that it's just us seeing something. And I'm going to prove that pareidolia is used by the most elite, occult, high-end people in our current society, and that they use pareidolia. I'm going to show it to you right now and prove it to you. Here's North America. We zoom in on North America. Here's the Colorado Rocky Mountains. And the Colorado Rocky Mountains, if you zoom in on them. Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the shape. If you look at it, I'm going to tell you what shape to see. It's a bucking horse shape. Okay. Where it's got two hooves on the front and the bucking horse. Yeah. And it's got this weird mane on the back that's spiked. Now I'm going to zoom in on what would be the eye. And you've got Estes Lake up at the highest point of Colorado of the eye of the horse. Now, to prove that this is not me seeing something, that this is actually a shape that's there, the eye of the horse is looking down upon the famous swastika-shaped Denver airport. And at the Denver airport, when you're driving out of the Denver airport, there is the very famous, and let me see if I can find it on here, the Denver airport horse. And let me bring it in at ground level here.
Mate, we can't see what you put because Bernie,
what have you hit? Oh, there.
Okay. And at the Denver airport is the famous Denver airport horse. Denver airport horse. There it is. The blue Mustang, they call him Blucifer. Now, the reason they call him Blucifer isn't because it's a bucking bronco for like the Denver Broncos. He's the same color as the mountains appear at a distance, and he's got a very specific shape to him. He's got the spiked mane and glowing red eyes, and now we can go in and see it at a ground level. They've gone up, and you can see at picture level if we do this. Blucifer is a giant blue horse, the color of the mountains at a distance, and he's got the glowing red eyes, but the back of his head is the mane that I just showed you.
Intentionally made Blucifer.
Yes, the intentionally made Blucifer here at the swastika-shaped airport. The horse in the mountains itself.
Like,
now there's a guy riding on the horse.
Effed up, like, because there's the huge underground part of that place, and that they intentionally made it a demonic Blucifer.
Yeah, that's the one that had
3 horsemen coming in with the apocalypse.
Oh yeah, the 3 horsemen.
Right.
Yeah, because it had the big mural in there. Yeah.
Okay. Now the apocalypse ties in with this because the guy riding on the back of the green or blue horse, depending on which one you want to go with, it looks it's pareidolia now. We're straight up pareidolia on purpose. That this is the bucking horse. The bucking horse is looking at the bucking horse, and on his back is riding a guy in a cloak that looks like he's got a beard up here. And this is Yellowstone up here. The head of the horseman of the apocalypse that's riding on. It looks like he's got a cloak. And he's over. This is his head. This is his nose and his eyes.
You heard it here, folks. Yellowstone is going to erupt.
Well, no. I didn't say that. But that this is pareidolia. This is pareidolia.
First.
And to prove that they're using pareidolia now, I'm going to show you one more example of it. There's a movie called Zardoz with Sean Connery. It's a very, very strange movie where Sean Connery is wearing this.
What? Oh my
and
gosh.
Sean Connery, the movie starts out and it says the gun is good and the male appendage is bad, but they don't say the male appendage. They say the P word. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get your stream banned. But Sean Connery plays a mutant in the future. And in the future, there's this giant head that lands and they pour grain into the mouth of the head. And then the head takes off and flies through an invisible barrier to an Illuminati base made of mirror pyramids. And there's people that are living forever in this Illuminati base, but they require food, and they ship them humans and food as slaves and as food. This is in the movie. Now, the head of Zardoz. Why is it called Zardoz? In the movie, Sean Connery plays a enforcer for these people, and he finds a book out in a burned library. And the cover's been burned off, and most of the book has been burned away, but he still picks it up, and he teaches himself to read using this book. It's The Wizard of Oz. But it says Zardoz because part of the cover's burned off, and he teaches himself to read via The Wizard of Oz. Now, why does that matter? The head of Zardoz is in the shape of the North American plate itself. Now, to see it, first let me show you the head. And they always show it at the same angle in the movie. It's this way. Now, I'm going to prove this to you because the movie's about the Wizard of Oz. Why does that matter? The head of Zardoz is in the North American plate where the 2 eyes of Zardoz are here and the mouth is right here. Now, to see it, you have to look a world away. And I'm going to prove it to you that they meant this because when I zoom in on the mouth of Zardoz where they toss the grain into the mouth of Zardoz, first of all, let me ask you, do you see the outline of the head of Zardoz here with the 2 eyes and the mouth? Compared to
oh yeah, wow,
the picture of Zardoz. It's like he's got the beard, he's got the. But now let me prove this to you that this is real. When we zoom in on the mouth of Zardoz, where you toss in the grain in the movie, in Kansas is known for its grain, but when I zoom in on the spot where the mouth is, there's this place, and it's called.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Well, it's ironic you say that. Because this is called Liberal, Kansas, where the Dorothy Museum is, where the house for Dorothy is. There it is. Dorothy's house. Dorothy's house is there where it goes over the rainbow. So now in the movie, Sean Connery goes over the rainbow, and they built this weird airbase here too.
And then we've got
Sean Connery goes over the rainbow to go to Zardoz, and here is Zardoz in the middle of the mouth of Zardoz, but Zardoz is set into the North American plate in a paradelia-like shape. It can't be changed. Having liberal Kansas and Dorothy's house, I didn't know that was going to be there. I saw this first. I saw this. I was just goofing around. I was super high, sitting there looking at the freaking screen, probably like somebody in the 1970s was doing it. I was high. I was looking at the screen, and I said, hey, that looks like the head of Zardoz. That's weird. I wonder what's at the mouth. And I zoomed in on the mouth, and I sees the Liberal, Kansas, and I knew that the Dorothy Museum was in Liberal, Kansas, because I've driven through Kansas before. So I'm like, holy shit. You got to be kidding me!
You know, so I just said,
and then here
dots in the comments section. I just have to point out that Dorothy is Dot. You know, Dot is short for Dorothy. So quite literally connecting dots right now.
Guys, it gets weirder. It gets more weird. This gets more weird. The story doesn't end yet. So Dorothy, the pavement of gold, the yellow brick road, right? Guess what is here next to the Dorothy Museum? They're built part of the same structure. The Coronado Museum, a tribute to Coronado. Coronado was the Spaniard searching for the lost city of gold and the Fountain of Youth. Now, get this. At the Coronado Museum, they have a statue of Coronado. And he's dressed as a Spaniard wearing the full costume that Sean Connery wears in Highlander. Now, Sean Connery, after Sean Connery was in Zardoz, a few years later, Sean Connery played Coronado's chief metallurgist. He hops over. Highlander and his wife are making out at a wall, like in the Middle Ages or something. And here comes Sean Connery over the wall on a horse, and he's like, hello, I am Sean Connery. I am the chief Spaniard. Now, they're in Scotland. Why isn't Sean Connery playing a Scottish Highlander?
To be fair, Sean Connery always plays a Scottish person, even when he's on a Russian submarine.
Right.
Russian
so
captain of the Red October.
He's the chief metallurgist for Coronado.
In the movie.
He announces this in the movie. So now they have the Coronado Museum right next to the Dorothy Museum. And then you've got Sean Connery playing Zardoz, who goes over the rainbow to go to the Illuminati base, where there's a secret underground Illuminati base where they're living forever. And here at this base, they just so happen to have every fighter jet known to man in a museum stored ready to fly.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Would it
In the
suck
middle of
if
the
you were
mouth
the
of
guy that
Zardoz?
gets stuck with one of the ship planes?
How
and then
many-
it's got the F-35?
This is
How
true
many,
paradelia, though. This
like,
is like
earthquakes have you noticed from that spot? Is that how you first became aware of it, or was it you said you drove through there?
I knew about the Dorothy house because I had driven through there going out to Colorado. My wife and I make a southern turn and went down to Pueblo and then went up through the south, and we stopped at the museum, but I didn't know about the head of Zardoz until I watched Zardoz. And then I didn't put any of it together until I'm sitting there one day looking at, well, believe it or not, I was looking at radar on my local weather map here, which shows it much better, even believe it or not, than Google Earth, because it's a little bit more low resolution. And I'll just say it, I was a little high when I was looking at the map, but it was true paradelia that I saw it on here better, that I saw the head of Zardoz here with the two eyes and the mouth. And I zoomed in and I said, oh, wow, there's the mouth of Zardoz right there where Sean Connery jumped in. And then I zoomed in and I saw that the direct center of the mouth was Liberal, Kansas. And then I said, oh, shit, that's where Dorothy's house is. And then that means somebody in the 1970s was sitting there tripping on acid or something. And they were looking at the view and they saw this head here and they wrote a movie about it. Or there's some real
base
there. There's like a real underground base there.
That's why I'm asking about the earthquakes. Like, I guess if they were expanding it or construction, you'd see a whole bunch of little ones. Like, only if they were building now.
Oh, there are.
It's built, right?
Brother,
like,
there are. That's
why I
all.
bring that up.
That's where the thousands of Oklahoma fracking earthquakes go right up to there and stop right there every day. For the last 12 years, I've been keeping watch. We start at the Panhandle, right?
Stop right there. They stop right there.
Or they start right there, actually, is a way to put it. Is that starting right there, we go, so that maybe that would be the entrance to the base there. And it would go down below all of Oklahoma.
That there's not the consistent land and the waves are like it's a different medium there, so it most likely is an air gap instead of a solid or liquid for those waves to continue through, especially them being seismic waves. Isn't that pretty much like direct evidence that there is a giant cavern in that spot, that the waves stop or start there, the earthquakes?
It could be. It would make a lot of sense if there was open areas for it to travel through or around. And the big one that I found that I showed you at the start of the update, it points right into his mouth. So like this thing really points down into the mouth of Zardoz, the one that I showed you that goes all the way through the mouth of Zardoz down to our weird underwater base that's down here that looks like the lines in Nazca, Peru. But this is 5,000 feet under the ocean. So this right here is 5,000 feet down in the ocean, but it connects back into this one that goes back up through the mouth of Zardoz right to our arrow. And Dorothy's house is right in the middle of it, which is really odd. Somebody's got to know.
Well, I mean, that could be an antenna going literally underneath, the USA, right?
It could be.
Yeah. Or tunnel.
So these guys, which I'm going to explore on boots on the ground in May here as the snow melts in Canada, but the famous indigenous Western Plains warrior, as well as in the same Badlands Valleys hill area, there's this guy, the Aztec Mayan feather serpent helmet warrior, and that I also believe to the top of the warrior's head here on the top eastern right is another Olmec's face, as well as what looks like a Viking head on the very top of the warrior's forehead and crown of his head here. But that the Ferrum Foundation has gotten extra evidence of the purpose of all of these massive earthenworks and the evidence that it's not just pareidolia. You see these numbers here, these different sites around the valley in Medicine Hat, Alberta, and that they are in fact what he's deciphered as geoglyphs, or these radial earthenwork geoglyphs. You can see these lines, these straight lines going the same direction as these arrows that he's marked out. And that, in fact, that these are earthen works of megalithic stone or earthen soil that is raised above the ground, and that mark specific lengths and angles that then plot out as these different radials from these sites, that when you take the exact angle and its length and put it on, that it gives you times his mathematical equation that I need to find the time to actually read the chapter to get what it is so I can confirm all of this. But point being, it plots out to specific geographic locations across the world and all the other ancient sites. And that pretty much also confirms that all of these massive, seen from above, terraforming structures were for mapping and keeping track of territories.
Now, can I throw out some food for thought on that? I hear whispers. Now, take this with a grain of salt, of course, maybe even a whole bag of salt. But I hear whispers that there's tunnels that are underneath those geoglyphs, and the connections that you made on the topographical maps are actually tunnel connections between point A and point B. So as you go deeper down, the connection itself is actually closer between point A and point B if we're on a sphere. It's interesting thought. Love to find out.
Indeed. So apparently with plotting these out, you need both flat maps and the globe. It's pretty interesting that you need both for the system to work. And when it comes to flat versus spherical round, that mathematically neither can be proven wrong. They're both accurate to the point that whether it's heliocentric or, sorry, what's the other term for it? The second one, heliocentric? Anyway, the two different, they both work, and you can never disprove one or the other. Thus, both must exist simultaneously. And for this geoglyphology to work, both also need to be plotted out using a flat and spherical curved mapatures with it. And here you can see the lines. Those are some of those radials, those geoglyphic earthenworks that he uses. So that's going to be one of the main things that we're going to confirm when we go explore this spot in May this summer. And it's going to be a YouTube meetup. So anyone Western Canada, Western US wants to come, or any rich sponsors want to come to Southern Alberta Badlands for the heck of it. Yeah, we're going to do a week here. This, what looks like an ear pod or earbud going up to his ear area, is actually a gravel road and an oil derrick. So that's how large from above this picture is. And that you can see here that it's not, another way you know it's not pareidolia is that this is it from the fall, this is it in like the spring, but this is regular, or maybe anyways, throughout the different seasons, so that the shadowing and the angles to capture these images, it's beyond a shadow of a doubt, pardon the pun, that to give the actual depth and features of this face and these faces that you're seeing, and that it's impossible. And they claimed the same for the face on Mars, that, oh, pareidolia, and it didn't look like it, when in fact, if you actually do a deep dive into all of the official pictures released, whatever the heck it is up there, that when you give them scrutiny, Richard Hoagland's work, shout out to him, showing that there was from different angles at different times of year, and once again, it would still create the features that show that these are indeed faces and depicting different things. Just like Dutch, you found all of the geoglyphs down there in Florida of the iguana, as well as the different buffalo and shapes. Was that in Idaho, or where was that one you found? And you muted, Dutch.
Oh, okay. No, I found the geoglyphs of several of them. The ones up in Idaho, they had turned the area into, it was a war fought over the location. Hog farmers had started bringing their hogs in the early 1800s onto this sacred land for the Native Americans up in Idaho. Anyway, found that an earthquake struck below it. And I zoomed in on it. I said, you got to be kidding me. What is this? People told me first it must be farmers paying tribute to the Native Americans by carving the shapes in. And now, of course, it's a slam dunk. It's a Native American site that was turned into a marshland and flooded every year by the government ever since they took it over and hid it. And, you know, this gets into something where we got to talk about it. I got to show it. I know we're going on, like 3 hours now, but there's something that I think, there's something everybody needs to see, which is, I'll bring it back over here. You're talking about geoglyphs and shapes and plates. And we get into the shape here again, here in the Midwest, which is the giant starfort shape. And in Missouri, zooming in down here on the, I hate to keep, beating a dead horse on this, but the Geospatial Agency built in the middle of the starfort here in St. Louis. Now, this starfort in St. Louis is marked here on the map. This is where the Geospatial Agency is being built right now. This is a map from 1796. Now, the water flows out and it goes down to the river. This is fresh water, obviously, flowing out and going over this is cliffs. I live here in St. Louis. These are cliffs that go up. There's a bluffs, if you will. And they got the waterfall drawn.
Sorry, I got to also point out that battery right there on the left, on the other side of the above cliff, on the other side there. There you go. The battery star forts, that same battery shape, you're going to find them everywhere, and that it's the identical battery that the entire wall of star forts that we showed earlier is made out of. And that, how is it over here in St. Louis in the 1600s, and then also a full wall of hundreds of them running thousands of kilometers across all of Eurasia?
I wonder if they're attached through an aquifer of some way, shape, or form.
Well, look what it is. Look what's at the tip of this now. Up here at the tip of this now is the St. Louis Water Tower. And so let me bring it in and show you. It's a giant old Tartarian Corinthian column made of brick that's huge. Look at it.
Right?
Okay,
Like,
this is
it's
the water.
such
This is
an
the water.
anomaly.
Yeah,
And
water
that's-
tower at the tip of this. Oh, whoa, my Google
Point
Earth
for
just
point, where that water
crashed.
starts here, you're showing is literally where the area of where that water tower currently is. And I think
Yeah.
you said there was 3 or 4 of the water towers in that area originally. And that
Yeah,
this is the
there's
one
two.
remaining?
There's 2 huge ones and then a third one that they've built, and all 3 are at the pinnacle tip of it. My Google Earth just crashed while I was trying to show you. I'll zoom back in on it again. Here we are in St. Louis. They have the Geospatial Agency being built in the center of this one. This was not disclosed to the public. They've hidden this. I had to find this myself and make everyone, including anthropologists here in the St. Louis region, aware of this. They built the X marks the spot housing project in the middle of it, and at the very tip of it is the water
Wow.
tower side by side.
That X right in the middle. And then
That
and
water
side by
tower, the
side.
white one, looks really similar to the one that you find in Chicago. You know, the World's Fair.
yeah, the one there.
Yeah. And then look at this one.
Yeah, identical, pretty much. And sorry, I gotta
Oh,
point
no,
out,
this
like
one's got-
Dutch was showing.
This one has spots to shoot out of.
How
So-
is like a water tower supposed to have spots to shoot out of? That makes zero
That would
sense
help,
whatsoever.
This gets into, again, my Google Earth just crashed again as I was trying to show it to you. That's twice now. Okay, so I'm going to get to this. I have to show it to you. They built something down along the river where this fresh water flows to, and it ties in with what they're doing with the rest of these forts around the world. They built a sewage plant to take all the sewage and trash. So
Yeah.
here is the Star Fort, and right over here, here's the fresh water coming out, and here's our sewage treatment plant right here.
Do you mind zooming
They're
in on
destroying the farm
on
water,
that X building? Like the
Oh,
X
yeah,
marks the spot. Is that an old world possible, like Tartarian-esque, or was
No,
that a new rebuild of it? And the
They built
fact
this in the 60s. They came in and
Okay.
built a housing project here, and
So
now they
they
refurbished the outside of it to
remarked
make it look nice.
remarked it, and then now they're repurposing, still using whatever energy thing that is with that geospatial thing there, right there in the center too. And that you showed also that there's all the military forts in all of these spots, and that Facebook data center, and now also this freaking geospatial unit.
And they built a school at the very pinnacle tip of it that's been abandoned, and it's for sale. You guys want to buy it?
Yeah, man.
We should all pitch our
fine.
money in, buy this place, and turn it into the School of Geophysics Studies of Tartarian Star Forts right next to the Geospatial Agency. It would be a slap in their face.
Yeah,
And
that
free,
would do that.
free energy, electrical engineering
Right there.
community.
That's
Water
what the school is right there.
purifying. Yeah,
Absolutely.
All these are dumps. These are all dumps that they built along here. So trash, recycling, turds, everything. Then, get this. An earthquake struck out on the West Coast last month out here in San Francisco. And it was a rare 5.0 in San Fran directly. And they downgraded it, whatever, but it shook up everybody. And I zoomed in on the earthquake epicenter. Let me show you. Actually, a picture speaks 1,000 words because I just showed you the trash dumps there, and this matters. So an earthquake strikes here, and I zoom in, and I zoom in some more. I'm going to turn off the place mark now just so you can see. This place is where the earthquake struck. And it doesn't look like much at first, but then I zoomed in some more, and I said, whoa, wait, there's a satellite array in the middle of there. That must be why the earthquake hit there. Satellites at the center of this little valley. And I thought, what is this? And I turned on the place marks, and it's a trash dump. It's a recycling center. Now, hold on. Look at what
and
this
look at
is.
that cliff. That's like
Hold
a
on.
natural speaker.
Hold on.
You got
This,
it, yeah.
this is a star fort. Now, let me get a star fort picture open. There's our classic star fort shape, and it's here. And they built houses on one side and a satellite array and a trash dump in the middle. But now that you know to look for it, there it is.
Yeah.
It's there. It really is there. I measured it. It's perfect. It's the star fort on all sides, 250 feet going down, and it's 250 feet high. They built
I'd
a
also like to
satellite
comment
array.
on the beautiful metaphor for shitting on our history.
Yeah, they are. They're
dominating
literally
Venture.
shitting on the history, and it's that is in the hills itself. I can bring it in at an angle to show it to you. It really is there. It's an old bastion fort that's been carved out on one side. They put a satellite array and a recycling center in the middle of it, and an earthquake struck below it, which is how I found it. And there it is.
Right, and how many of these sites that you discovered because of the earthquakes? That's the only reason you found so many of them. And that how many in a row do you need for it to be like, okay, this is absolute mathematical facts now. This is a system, a grid. It's undeniable. It's not pareidolia or coincidence. And welcome, Eric Hecker. Oh, did we lose Hecker?
He just... And I have to go, guys. I'm dying very fast.
Yeah,
here.
for much love.
12:30, midnight.
12:30.
Nice to meet you, Dutch. Nice to meet you, Gerald. Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome night, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Well, Brother CAmbell. And I believe Eric will be right back. Eric's the my friend, good guy that spent a year working at the South Pole, and that you had a couple of questions or things you would like to discuss with there, Michael.
Oh, all definitely. Right. The South Pole, my goodness. We got to talk about the earthquakes and the lack of reporting of earthquakes from down at the South Pole.
But first, I guess, please finish the last aspects of the star forts in St. Louis, and that I know there's a whole nother part that I keep interrupting you on that you really want to get out. So, but it's connecting to it because there's the water tower, that original source of water in St. Louis that you see in that diamond shape of it. That was the original water moat or area of it that you see in the old photo, but that's supplying that water that's then running down into the river. And notice that shape there. And once again, how many coincidences do you need of geometry?
No such thing as coincidence.
Oh, exactly. The flowing water, and then right across the river, directly across, is the Kokia Mounds. So,
please share your screen again, Mike, because
yeah.
And I interrupted you.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Let me get a display capture turned on. There we go. And over here in St. Louis, directly across the river from this giant star fort, right here, here's the Geospatial Agency. Here's the outline in the road still. But we go right over here. Here's our racetrack and the Kokia Mounds. And let me turn on all our borders and labels and all that good stuff. And here's the Kokia Mound State Historic Site with all its big mounds. And they built train tracks and electrical lines right through the side of them. And the train tracks and electrical lines go down to the riverfront, where we go right to the St. Louis Arch. And the St. Louis Arch is built on layers. In case you didn't know, it's built on a layer of coal at the bottom, just like the mounds that I showed you at the start of the update. And then on top of that, clay, and on top of that, red clay, like what Paul's showing you over in the UK.
Everywhere, pretty much.
Right. Metal? Is it conductive?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, the St. Louis Arch is was built by a guy named Cyril White. He was the designer of it. And if you look up Cyril White, his side project, the thing that he was really interested during World War II was weather modification. And so he designed the arch to actually be a full ring, and we only see half of it. And the other half, he said, foundationally, goes down into the ground and makes it a full ring instead of an arch. And then across the river, they just built this. They expanded the Gateway Arch Memorial to have the pool. Now, the pool and the phallus are something we should talk about at a separate time. You'll see it in Washington, D.C. You'll see the obelisk, which is shown, an obelisk representing the phallus, and then right next to it, a pool of flowing water. And usually the pool of flowing water has suds and everything coming out of it. And they do that on purpose. That's kind of an occult thing going on there. But it has to do with geometry and flowing of frequency and stuff. It's not occult.
You got it. It's a massive antenna array as well, those the monoliths in those spots.
Not to mention the moving water just through electrostatics creates its own.
Charging it, killer weight.
Yeah.
And look where the river used to go.
Right.
The river used to go, it was directed over right next to the mounds. And we have closed that off. And the Star Fort used to flow fresh water down into the Mississippi. Now we put turds into it. Now, you mentioned the quarries. On the north side of here is Fort Bellefontaine. Belle meaning good, Fontaine meaning fountain. Fort Good Fountain was here, but instead they've done this. I don't know if you see it on the screen. They've quarried it out.
Right?
So
quarried again. Boom. Look at that, how big it's going. And it's like you'll literally find that and deep down into the ground, like it's indented, inverted deep, like a strip mine quarry at that point at most of these. And you'll see them all over the place where in the old maps of the old world were these bigger star forts and citadel star fort cities and places that were built up several stories, and now it's going several stories down into the ground, and they've reused all of that stone to build the modern world.
On the screen, you see this on the screen here. This is my house. I've already been doxxed, so it doesn't matter. Here's my house. There's my kayaks down at the lake. Now, right over the hill, I found this. Now, I'm going to compare this to this. And what you're going to see is that this goes back to that, and it's another giant star fort right here next to my house, 2 miles away. Now, this has been hidden. I had to find this myself. I made anthropologists aware of this at University of Washington, Washington University here in St. Louis and St. Louis University 3 weeks ago when I made my video on this. Now, on the front end of this, at the very tip of this, right down here, is a radio tower. Okay? They put a radio tower and cell phone tower, big microwave tower. We have power line that goes right through the middle of it, and on the back side of it, another quarry. Now, this is confirmed there. This isn't pareidolia. This matches this one in St. Louis. This one's in North St. Louis, exactly 40 miles down to the foot to the east, due east.
Wow.
So, one more time, 40 miles due east of here. We'll just go over, and we're at the Star Fort over in St. Louis. So this one is an ancient one. This is 8 miles long. Now, guess what comes out? This starts at 800 feet. We're up here at 840 feet above sea level. And then we go down, 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 down to the river, the old Missouri River. Now, here's the one in St. Louis. I'll turn it back so it's proper oriented as it was made. So the one in St. Louis flows down, 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 starts about 800 feet above sea level and floats down to the river. The one I found over here by my house, this was built, guys, thousands of years ago. There's no way the French built this. This is 8 miles long. It's overlooking the old remnants of the ancient Missouri River from back God knows how long ago. I had to find this myself in the topography, and every professional missed it. Now, guess what was built here? See this big thing right here? This is nuclear radioactive stockpile from the Manhattan Project that was here. The Manhattan Project just so happened to build their nuclear processing facility for World War freaking II here at Defiance, Missouri, which is right here along this river right here, and at the Star Fort. And they cordoned all this off and made this a giant government facility where now you can live here. But guess what? As a kid, I used to come out here and climb in the old radioactive silos and go up to the top of the old uranium mills. I didn't know they were uranium mills at the time, but why did the U.S. government build another one of these radiological facilities there? Because I already showed them to you out here on the West Coast. We got our nuke test sites. We've got our nuclear bombers taking off in the middle of it.
Same exact spot.
Nuclear. Oh, and I didn't show you the nuclear on
focal spots.
The side of the Facebook data center. The Facebook data center and Apple data center on the right side, just like Area 51 and the nuke sites, all the way up here is the Hanford Nuclear Waste Storage Facility from the Manhattan Project. They're all on the sides of these star forts.
It
crazy.
seems like an electrical circuit formula that's repeated over and over.
Exactly. And welcome, Eric. We got Eric Hecker back. Welcome, good sir.
Sorry.
Had some technical difficulties before. I apologize.
No worries. Can hear you loud and clear now, brother. Good to
Excellent,
have you.
excellent.
I
was enjoying the conversation before. I was just on the tail end of my work shift, so I did not catch as much as I wanted to, just bits and pieces. But it's been fascinating, the work that you guys have been doing into these starports. As a tradesman, I've always been eyeballing these structures as way beyond the descriptions of what we were given. It just, what we were told doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, right? Like they're just too complex and too much resources and yeah, just it's so unpractical and over the top and just ridiculous for the time period that they claim that they were needed it makes zero sense. There has to be something so much more to it. And then when you get into fractal array antennas and just fractals in general and geometry, it all starts making a lot more sense.
You know how long it would take us to move that amount of Earth nowadays with all the massive heavy equipment that we have? I just look at those as job sites, and I just try to imagine how these guys got this work done without the tools that I have available to me. It's like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. It's like, I don't care what you pay me, and you're like, hey, grab a shovel, Eric, and go help those guys out. Like, no way, no. I quit like immediately. We're not digging this. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's lunacy.
Bang on,
it would have to be,
brother.
I would think, frequency of some kind. I mean, I would think cymatics frequency. You know how, I mean, when you vibrate sand or salt on a speaker and it gives you the shape of a whatever, that it could happen on a huge basis. And you were down in Antarctica, right? They're saying you were in Antarctica?
Yes, I spent
is it really? Is it truly cold? Is it truly cold?
Oh yeah, it's cold. It's cold for sure. There's no denying that. It's ruthlessly cold.
How about the summer though? Like compared, like is it hot in the summer when it's 24-hour sun though? Like does it
It's a relativity thing for sure, and there's a lunacy. So the hottest day that I was there was actually Christmas Eve, December 24th of 2010, and we got as hot as -5 degrees Fahrenheit, and it felt hot because of the atmosphere conditions being so thin. We were outside in t-shirts and you got too hot. The sun was cooking you. You did not feel cold.
Wow.
That's wild. That's so wild.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It felt odd.
Did they let you go anywhere? I mean, if you wanted to go somewhere, could you like just take off and go somewhere? Or do you have to get permission to go? Obviously, the Russians have their spot and the different people have different spots.
I mean, certainly you would need to get permissions if you wanted to get anywhere far. I mean, you can't commandeer a plane or a helicopter or anything. Actually, there's no helicopters
like
that far.
It's just planes or something.
I mean, I took a snow machine at the tail end of my winter. I was there for close to a year at that point, and I absolutely scored a snow machine that I was not supposed to have. And I drove that until basically the facility, the South Pole Station, was like a dot on the horizon. But at that point, there's just nothing. There's nothing to see. I mean, it's an ice field at 10,300 feet of actual elevation. It is completely smooth and barren of anything to look at.
Is it really that high? I didn't even realize. 10,000 feet?
Correct. 10,300 feet. The continent of Antarctica is on average the coldest, highest, and driest. It's 0% humidity. Literally.
It explains why it's so cold. The height
it's
alone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The seismic, see, the thing that I've got about Antarctica, and I don't doubt that Antarctica exists, or I've showed it, with the shape of it. It's shaped like a pentagonal star fort. And that to me, it seems like there would be some seismic that would come from there. And instead, the entire 12 years that I've been online, we don't have not one single report of an earthquake down there below the ice, which we should pick up. I mean, we should be able to pick it up down in the plate, wherever that is down below. And then Yeah,
all of
this
the
guy,
normal outfits that pick these things up aren't picking stuff up there?
correct.
Shut up.
We don't pick up any seismic, and it's not reported to us. And the weirdest thing happened. A few years ago in 2016, I did a fundraiser for my channel, like a few $1,000s or something like that. And a fellow shows up. His name was Professor Astor. And Professor Astor showed up below my fundraiser. He's from the University of Colorado. And he called me a fraud and said, and furthermore, went off on me basically and told people not to donate to my fundraiser. It was really odd.
What was he calling you a fraud about?
Well, this is odd. He was talking about fracking earthquakes, and earthquakes can't be caused and induced by man-made drilling. Now, here's the weird part. He then went on to go down to Antarctica to install a bunch of new seismic sensors to detect the seismic activity from Antarctica.
So
and
your work opposes his work, and he was worried about his grant?
I have no idea. It was really weird. I didn't know who the guy was, but he ended up going down to Antarctica and installing a bunch of seismic, which we don't get any info on. And did they ever, do you know of any earthquakes that were ever detected down there while you were there?
I don't. But then the other thing, like the first thought that crosses my mind is you have 2 miles of ice. Is it possible that that's a very effective dampener so that you don't feel the effects?
No, I think that would actually, in fact, cause more, or at least on the smaller scale quakes. You'd think they'd be happening all the time from the constant ice shifting.
Well, I mean, that did happen all the time. So how do you make a distinction? Like we had ice quakes all the time, but I couldn't tell you that's an ice quake or an earthquake. What's the difference?
Right. With the fracture. Yeah, like with the fracture on an ice quake, I would think that it probably would look like an explosion or something. I don't know, but like it's really cool to think about that down below the ice sheet that there's of course the plate that it's scraping along, and then down in the plate there should be seismic that gets detected 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 50 kilometers down in the crust, down in the plate, and it doesn't get reported to us. I'm just wondering if there's some other reason. Like I found this stuff from
I would say this immediately. There's a massive lag on the info coming off the ice.
That would make sense. Maybe they report it later.
If something happened, the general public's not going to hear about it for 10 years. That's how academia works. That's how the whole entire system works.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, any scientist anywhere on the planet, Antarctica is not exclusive to this snail's pace of dissemination of information.
True. Yeah, it is the last giant ice wall, and that it holds the answers to humans' past or to a lot of the mysteries of our realm. I just wanted to point out this old map there, Dutch. You were mentioning the inner sea, the old inner sea that was on the west side that went up to the Salt Lake there on the previous existence of North America. Probably before the Ice Age or whatnot, the catastrophe, but here is a map that actually has it depicted there before explorers have made it back over to the north area of North America after European recolonization of whatever genocide or reset catastrophe happened.
Totally. And when you look at it too, it matches up with where Salt Lake City goes back to, where we still have the remnants of the old ocean that's still there. Speaking of the old ocean and interior oceans, that gets back to Antarctica. We saw that there was this video from Byrd back in the first expedition or second. It was the Lando Lakes. You guys know about that, right? The Lando Lakes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my God, this is crazy. It's declassified declassified film from the 1920s from the U.S. Army Archives, U.S. Navy Archives, a Byrd down there. And when Byrd, it was maybe the second expedition, and they took
I don't think it was High Jump. I think it was the one after High Jump.
Right, they took planes and they flew all the way along and went interior to Antarctica, and they said they flew all the way into the very center. But I was mind blown to see that. And they found this place that they called Lando Lakes. And they said it was several hundred square miles of an area that was staying warm in the middle of winter. and that they landed their seaplane to take water measurements.
It had
This is in the
light. It was
documentary.
lit up though, Mike. It would have been North America's winter and their summer because it was daylight in that filmage. Because there was some footage of it that came out. That's original documented footage of these lakes you're talking about, and them being de-iced and melted.
Yeah, it would have been summer down there. Exactly.
Yeah, for it to be lit, it would have.
It would have been dark if they were flying during nighttime. Yeah, but they found it and they said that. I don't know. I'll go get the before we go. I will actually get the it's from a channel called Periscope Films, who restores old film footage that's donated to them. And they got the U.S. government. So check out Periscope Films. They've got it. But
totally.
And now check
I
this out.
I have a curiosity on the way to figure stuff out on that direction, because I am curious about what's going on down there as well. And what we can start to conclude is if we know what type of plane it is, people can actually look up. Like, it's going to take a very specific flight pattern. This hole has to be a particularly large hole for you to fly a plane in.
Oh, these were freshwater lakes, Eric, and the footage. I've seen the footage too.
It's like on the surface.
Pull it up here.
I'm not denying it. I'm just trying to figure out how we can find it.
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, I'm saying, like, when a plane comes in for landing, it doesn't just see a hole in the ground and then dive down into it. You know what I'm saying?
No, it was freshwater lakes that they saw. So no, this one that Mike's talking about, because there's two stories. There's the story of when Admiral Byrd went into the center and experienced the inner earthness and whatnot. But then there's this second one that Mike Dutch is talking about right now. That is where they saw a bunch of freshwater turquoise-colored lakes with no snow, like melted rock beaches, pebble beaches, and just beautiful
if you're talking
colors.
On the surface, that could be everywhere.
Yeah, on the surface. It was on the surface, but
what he found,
rock and bedstone. It wasn't a glacial lake. They were like actual lakes in the bedrock, and that it was an amphibious plane. Maybe it was from Operation High Jump because they did have the aircraft.
I'd be curious to know what the plane
it landed, and there's color footage of them in it.
I'm sure there's tons of video from on the surface. I was curious about the inner one and what plane they were saying was for that, because then calculations could. I mean, there could be flight paths and hole dimensions figured out.
Yeah, he landed. What Byrd described as they landed. They first spied it from above, and they saw that there was no snow or no ice or anything, and that it was down to the surface. And then they landed the plane in the waters to test and see, and they found that the waters were somewhat temperate. And this was going on for hundreds of square miles, but they didn't test them all, obviously. But what they landed in was found to be temperate. And they specifically said that the shores were lined with fresh coal on the surface of the on the surface.
Right, one second, guys.
Thinking,
I'm gonna head off. Thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't stay for too long, but feel a little bit tired after the event.
Oh man!
So Dutch, I need to get a way to get in touch with you, because we definitely need to do a show together, talk about some stuff. I'd love to pick your brain and go over some proper history. And also, Eric, you sound like someone I want to talk to you as well. So if we could arrange something at some point, that'd be absolutely brilliant. And Gerald, you as well. So anyway, on that note, I will leave you guys. I hope you enjoy yourselves. Have a great stream. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer, but had a busy day, and I just popped in to do a bit. But anyway, thanks. It's been great.
Oh, much love, brother.
He had corrective surgery earlier today, and still came in.
Yikes!
Always a pleasure with Luke.
Surgery sucks. Anyway, the long story short is that they found this multi-hundred-mile wide melted area that they said was melted year-round. I don't know how they would know that, but they found it lined with coal, and I thought that was interesting because, coal at the surface, and you've got a lot of water, coal and water, all you'd need is a boiler, and you've got yourself infinite steam power. Like, so
as a plumber, I was confused why they weren't doing steam heat down there compared to what they were doing with the glycol and heat exchangers and blah blah blah. I've heard all of this stuff about Byrd before, and have you never heard of the dry valleys?
Oh, I've heard the snowless parts. Yeah, I've heard of like
there's an area
I haven't
called the dry
seen
valleys
them,
that is but that's so he's people don't realize that he can be discussing very benign things, and because they're not from, these people don't have Antarctic experience, they just don't like. I get that the story sounds fantastical. I get that it can be fantastical. I'm not against that possibility, but there are also very present facts that also explain exactly what he saw. The dry valleys existed then. The dry valleys exist right now. His explanation could have been him flying into the dry valleys. It could be that simple.
Is it large areas of water in the dry valleys?
There is large areas of no ice where there's never been ice, and that's why they're referred to as the dry valleys. They use them as a facsimile of the Mars landscape.
Yeah, they landed this plane in the water, though, so that kind of.
I'm sure in the barrier areas between the dry valleys and the areas that are completely covered with ice, there's probably intermediate situations going on. I don't doubt that in the slightest.
100%, Eric. What you're describing sounds like what you see in the videos of it. And so these are supposed mountain/pyramids taken in Antarctica. And you said you witnessed at least one of these while you were down there. I have to my right, I have a massive panoramic photograph of a mountain range in Antarctica. It's from the program. My roommate was also in the program. She got this photograph from a coworker like a gift, right? And this you sprawl this thing out and then print it on the picture as each of the names of the mountains in the range. And as you're going through, there's mount this and mountain that and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden in the middle of it all, over one of the peaks, it just says pyramid. And it's the only one that's shaped like perfectly pointed. And it doesn't say Mount Pyramid or Mountain Pyramid. It just says pyramid. So to me, it's photographic evidence from the program that I happened upon somehow. Holy moly. I love that.
That's how life happens sometimes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this thing out to what do you call them? Conventions and things like that. I showed it to Brad.
Did you say it's on your wall right now?
It's rolled up in a tube right next to me.
Oh, darn it. I was like, come on, take a look.
I've put it on the internet for it. The problem is it's like this 16-foot long panoramic, right? So it's not meant to be put on a webcam for people to look at because it just looks all blurry at that point. There's no resolution. And then everybody's like, oh, you can't see it. You're a liar. And it's like, what do you want me to do? It doesn't translate through the medium. I mean, I can go hold up a picture for you right now and say, hey, here's a big photo of a mountain range.
Right, it's that you've experienced the pyramids down there yourself, or the pyramidal mountains, and once you've experienced something for yourself, you know it as truth because you've lived through it.
I've flown over the Transantarctic Mountains, and that was gorgeous to see all the glaciers. Like it looks like oceans in motion. You're up so high, everything looks like waves, and you kind of have to pay attention to the fact that it's not moving. But you can get the feel for the flow with great ease, the way everything's moving through the mountain ranges. You can see it all. Yeah, see, images like this that you put up, like I see that image and I start to wonder the labor involved. And, just straight up, there are calculations that can be made from man hours. I want to know how many man hours were put on that site.
Oh. Millions.
How many calculation? People, how would you guys calculate it? I'm no expert on ancient construction. But how many men are needed for how many hours a day to do this from start to finish? What was there before this was there, before they moved all of this earth and structure? This is absurd.
Right? Like the level of terraforming is insane because each one of these canals is literally a wall story down or up from each other, and that they've built these in perfect symmetry and level to be able to flow like that, keep the waters like that, and these massive walls up and up and up like that. It's insane to have to level it all, and that each one of these angles are at least 1, 2, maybe even up to like 3 or 4 stories of pure wall elevation between each level of these moats and their walls and what they're building, and that they have to have this inner same battery geometry, the battery unit that they've bastardized with the bastion fort that we find everywhere as the base of it. And then a lot of the time, the more advanced, then you're going to have an outer shell of with the water in between it insulating, and then between that, then these additional radial pieces. And it's like, these don't make sense for a battle sake. Like, what the heck is this little square here, this little square, this little, like, from people attacking? Like, no, that's not logical in any sense. Like, and that with horse and cart and shovel, and how the heck would they even level it or get this above perspective to be able to understand this perspective of above, and then what they're going to have to level on the ground, and then actually start doing it all with animal and manual labor? Like, are you freaking kidding me? This is next to impossible.
And no instantaneous communication either. So, I mean, you're trying to get it down to a point on either side. I mean, just think about it, guys. This is the man hours. You're right. It'd be like 20 trillion man hours. And how many bulldozers nowadays do you think it would take? I mean, geez, this is insane. Horse and buggy.
And then I also think too about like practical reality on a job site, right? How do the folks back then convey the information from the architect's head to the tradesman's hands? We have blueprints and stuff nowadays in conversations, right? How did they practically do this back then? Did they have blueprints for all these facilities that we don't have? Like, what was the medium of communication? Since you're right, they don't have, a way to do it across the site, but let alone how do they even convey the idea? This is what we're going to build.
Yeah, like it would take a day's journey just for one person to take one of the prints to the worker on the other side of the city, because they'd have to like walk it or hike it or take a freaking horse. Like it's so impractical.
Well, that star fort that you showed out in the Florida Keys earlier, how many bricks were built? Like, what? How many boats worth of bricks did they send out there? Are you kidding me?
Was it 16 million? I think.
Yeah. How do you get truckloads of bricks on and off a wooden?
Yeah, and they built
at the height of the Civil War. Where do you get the manpower at the height of the Civil War to do that?
How many meetings would it take literally to build just one section of wall?
Coordinating a star fort being built over there.
Impossible.
Mm-hmm. Like
we've got a hidden history. I mean, it's pretty obvious there's a hidden history. I'd say the one place where we don't have any clue on it is where there probably would be down in Antarctica, where it's just 10,000 feet of ice, and anything down below is going to be scraped away anyway, so we wouldn't have evidence there, and it would be so old anyways that you wouldn't know. Like,
I can tell you this much: when they were drilling being a relative term, using hot water to remove the ice to get down to do stuff for the ice cube neutrino detector installation, they were hitting trees and palm trees and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard of that too.
There was stuff in the ice for sure.
It was tropical, subtropical plant and animal like matter and fossilization they'd find underneath the ice and in the sludge.
They found all kinds of weird. They found a crate of old hot dogs from some old expedition, and they ate them and got sick.
Finding palm trees, though, that's huge. I mean,
apparently it's the exact in Alaska too.
About the woolly mammoths that were frozen, I don't know where that was, but there were those flash frozen
over by Fairbanks.
Is that what it was up north? So
yeah, over by Fairbanks, the guy had 5-acre property. He's got over 10,000 woolly mammoths on it.
Wow.
Yep.
The boneyard there, right?
Yep.
Like
correct. Yep.
And that a lot of what they're finding is that the plants are like tropical-ish or like just subtropical. Definitely a lot, not just northern, but actually tropical and what's in between it. So I don't know. Sorry.
People don't realize right now the southern part of Alaska right now is a rainforest.
Yeah, that's on the coast. Right. Well, how far north is Alaska, right? Because you're in Alaska.
Freakishly north. Alaska's just massive.
But
the state of Alaska is 1/3 the size of the lower 48.
To where you were in with what you experienced in the South Pole in a year at the South compared to where you are in Alaska in a year in the North.
I've been to the South Pole Station, which is 90 degrees south, but I've also been to places as far north in Alaska. I think I was up near 72 degrees up in Barrow, Alaska, Utqiagvik, which is the furthest northern point in Alaska. I did some work up there, so they do get 24 hours of darkness in the wintertime for a bit. I guess they get 24 hours of sun for a little while too in the summertime. I don't think I spent as much time up there in the summer though, but it gets cold in Barrow, but nowhere near South Pole. I think the coldest that I saw in Barrow was maybe minus 20 or minus 30 or something like that Fahrenheit.
Okay, so pretty much the same temperature as I'm experiencing in southern Alberta, Calgary.
Probably. I would be surprised if it gets colder than minus 40 Fahrenheit in Barrow, which is the same as minus 40 Celsius. So you'd be familiar with that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then how warm does it get in the winter too when it's pitch black there? I remember a couple last year, 2 years ago, it was right around Christmas and super dark, and you were in above freezing temperatures for a week or two or something, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we get weird warm spells every now and then for sure. You talking about up here in Alaska? Yeah,
yes, sir.
I mean,
yes, sir.
Yeah, it gets cold in the wintertime, but it's not brutal up here actually, and it could warm up freakishly at any point in time. Today we were supposed to be in the 40s, but it's going to wind up not happening, and we got snow everywhere right now.
Right. So, Dutch, I'm bringing this up in regards to a little bit we've talked off air about the weather and the weather patterns and how what we're being told of what it is might not necessarily be exactly that. And that there's been this extreme, especially North America or Americas, where on the East Coast, it can be extremely hot. It will be the exact opposite on the West Coast and be in an exact freeze, but it extends all the way down pretty much into Mexico now, and it goes back and forth all winter long, where now Texas and Mexico are getting snow each year, and that it can be warmer in Alaska when it's close to 24 hours of darkness, warmer there than it is in Mexico, pretty much it's just nuts. Or I guess not. It would have to be Florida, not Mexico, because it's on opposite sides. When one is hot, one is cold.
USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, I think in 2018 or maybe it was 2017, I don't know the exact year, announced that they are new growing guidelines for farmers and people who plant crops outdoors. And they had it organized by a 1, 2, 3, and 4 category going up north. And they shifted every area north by one full number north, whereas stuff that would normally be planted down in Arkansas and North Texas can now be planted up in Missouri. And they shifted that whole thing to the north, all the way to the North Pole, by changing the numbers and saying that's due to climate change, whatever you want to call that, and that the warmer latitudes are shifting northwards the same year. Actually, this was 2012, so it wasn't 2017. It was 2012. And the way I know it was 2012, same year, a bunch of airports across the country shifted their there's a magnetic declination for pilots that's set into a magnet at the airport, basically along the runway, so you can find your way in the darkness or anything else. Anyway, they had to shift the magnet slightly because north had shifted slightly, which we all know is shifting slightly and heading over towards Siberia and picking up pace heading over towards Siberia. And they keep track every year. You can see the progression of the pole, the magnetic pole, going over towards Siberia. Now, this gets in with Edwin Haley.
That last picture, does anybody know what that was? The sundog one? The one on the right there?
Yeah, so this one right here, the drawing.
Yes.
It looks like a couple of comets and some sort of alchemical astrological.
I meant the source. Any idea where that came from?
No,
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm intrigued that it matches the sundog so well.
Exactly,
That's
right?
perfect match, actually. Yeah, it is.
Truly.
That was something that I did witness down in the summer season at the South Pole. I don't know to what iteration, but it was multiple iterations outward. When the sundogs grow into their different iterations and get more complex, they really start to look like a giant flower of life in the sky. And I saw one that was very complex one time, and it had a lot of the circles and the nodes, and I couldn't begin to tell you what level it was, but it was nuts to see happening.
Really?
Yeah, they get that one's just starting. The one on the left, they're starting to get bigger, and the top ring will grow, and then more rings will grow around the sides, and it actually starts to wrap around your entire horizon line. They get more. You can look up pictures on. You can look up pictures. They grow in a very determined fashion, like in the different stages and such.
Can you actually watch them grow line by line, or is it sort of like a field growth?
It was. I think it was the latter. It was more like a field growth. It was more like it was more like in a way it seemed like it was like something that you felt like it was there all the time. You couldn't see it. It was like it was materializing in front of you.
That's awesome.
It was like all in sections.
This looks like underground tunneling beneath the fields coming out from the star fort. This is tunnels, and look at the freaking geometry and weirdness. What could be the rationale purpose of this?
It makes me think of a Tesla valve, the check valves, the no parts check valves, the one-way valves.
Oh, yeah.
Makes. That's what that makes me think of.
That's what that is. It's exactly what that is.
Water flow.
That's water underneath, probably, then keeping it in check.
Interesting.
Did you guys happen to hear, it was not that long ago, there was some information that just came out to the public, which was an example of what I was saying before. That's interesting. That the information comes out in a lag. When I was in Antarctica, when I was on the ice, I was hearing information at the time. So to me, it was understood. I was present in a place where this information was understood. They were already discussing the massive waterways in between the ice sheet and the continent, like rivers and stuff like that, and that there would be large caverns because the rivers flowing are at a completely different temperature than the ice above it, so it would carve out like a half pipe above the riverbed, and there would probably be shorelines and stuff like that. These were just things that I heard back then, and it was only just this year that apparently they came public, and they were like, oh, we flew planes over with LiDAR. We just figured out. And it's like, just figured out seems to be a really screwy way of saying things.
Mm-hmm.
I remember learning about that at least 15, 20 years ago.
Now they're doubling down on that. It's a massive river system. They said equal to any other river system of any other continent that we see that's not covered with ice.
Wow.
Really? And then isn't this the actual two chunks of Antarctica? It's supposedly this is actually what it looks like.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
The water, and that there's this water sea between the two.
Well, that totally makes sense, right? Because the vast majority of the land mass of the continent of Antarctica is below sea level. So you go slapping ice on top of it, right? And then you have mountains that cut through that and peak all the way up. Well, down at sea level and or below sea level, it affords a lot of opportunity for there to be waterways in between the ice and the land.
Very good.
Pretty much what Hitler's guys were saying back in the day.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that John Warner III, the former Secretary of the Navy that passed away recently, disclosed that we had submarines throughout Antarctica utilizing these waterways.
Really?
When he was asked about why, his response was space operations.
That explains the lack of reporting of earthquakes, guys.
I would agree with that. I mean, that if they're going that far, it would cover a lot of lack of reporting for a lot of stuff.
Totally. That would explain everything.
Mm-hmm.
My mind.
Once you add submarines to the mix, everything's quiet. It's the silent service.
Literally, that gets into the submarine base out in the middle of the Mojave and the supposed connection from the West Coast to the Mississippi River. There's this video on YouTube from several years ago of two ex-U.S. Navy SEALs or whatever, and they're on camera, going on record, you can believe them or not, that they say that starting at Monterey Bay off the west coast of California, that there's a undersea connection of tunnels, and that the United States is more like a plate going over the top of an ocean, and that they take submarines all the way into Nevada and then all the way through underneath the plate and come out in the Mississippi River in a freshwater pocket that comes up through the center of the plate, and that they're able to take saltwater subs out in the ocean, bring them into freshwater, and come up and go down the lock and dam canal system of the Mississippi River. This is all a video I watched. I'm like, what the heck? Now you got... Yeah, this is years ago. I saw that video.
So I remember if they could do that maneuver, they should be able to pull off the Antarctic maneuver.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, it's if there's underground caverns, you can certainly bet that the submarines would use them if they could.
They do biannual exercises up here in the north under the ice with the submarines. Ice X happens every 2 years.
Yeah, off the coast of Alaska and stuff.
Yeah, they're testing to operate under the ice, which means you can't surface. So that's let's just say that might be getting a boat ready to go and do a little bit more developed operations.
Well, yeah, but I'm just thinking of like the size of the ice sheet up there, and like it's essentially a continental-sized ice sheet, especially in the winter. And that's what, at least what they claim to be there. And if they are traversing that entire thing, that's the same lengths and conditions as what you're speaking about in Antarctica of navigating those lakes and underground rivers and passages through the ice.
I think it's actually more of a psychological test for the crew of training. I assure you that the submarine crew...
Oh, for sure.
Wants the ability to spawn that boat. You know what I'm saying? When you get on a submarine and you go underwater and you have to do your submariner's job,
no rescue.
Everything's great because everything can surface, right? But you take that away, and that crew now has an issue. So I believe the Ice X operations, I don't think it's so much about the maneuverability training of tight quarters. It's just simply you can't get up. You still have you have a ceiling now, but you still have your left and right movement. You still have depth that you can go to. You just can't surface willy-nilly anymore. There, you might be able to find a thin spot. Certainly they do training to puncture through the ice. They do that every training with Ice X. But I think it's more of a psychological training for the crew to get acclimated to not being able to surface.
Before I change the subject here and what's up this star for it, you can see the water of how they have the canals running through. It's like probably 15 different, 10 connections to the outer one going in, and then 3 inner circles. And that this is what, Milano? The city of Milano?
And just so you know, Bernie, in 1994, I was in the subservice.
But then what the heck was what?
Hey, thank you for your service, man. That's got to be a heck of a job to be down in the submarine, man. I mean, the hunt for Red October makes it look glorious.
It wasn't much of a participation on my side, Dutchsinse, to be honest. It was a very peculiar enlistment, which is worthy of other conversations. I learned a lot of weird stuff about what's going on in the world from my short time in the submarine service. But I wound up getting myself out technically. So I don't need any.
You fake claustrophobia or something, right?
That's funny.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I remember what I wanted to ask.
There's a lot going on under the water that they're not telling us about. You're 1,000% correct. There was technologies that I saw in 1994 that they were apologizing to me for, saying, oh, it's an old boat. We have old tech. We're so sorry. We're going to get upfitted. And that was stuff that the rest of the world didn't see for 40 fucking years. Touch screens on phones and stuff. You think Steve Jobs invented that? Come on. These everybody out there that's loaded gets handed everything. We pay for it with our tax dollars. Our research and development goes into some program, and then some buddy of some pal gets handed all the info, and then they become indebted to them. And that company now makes shitloads of money, and you think that the outfit that got them started can't dip into that? You think the CIA gets you all set up and then leaves you alone? Yeah, here's your billion. I heard they never do. Yeah, we're never going to touch any. You're never going to do anything for us.
You do everything for us, you mean?
So, Dutch, I wanted to bring up that you made several very interesting and fascinating discoveries over monitoring of these cycles, these energies, as well as the satellites and sensor information feeds over the years. One being the radar, sorry, forgive me, I'm a little tired. Which type of radar was it that causes the tornadoes and the toroidal spinning, as well as all these energy laser beam blasts as well? Oh, Michael, there you go. You're muted.
Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Let me get this can of worms and let me open it up. We've got so much that we could talk about when it comes to this. I could go on for 3 hours. This is where I got into all the trouble. This is where I got my channels shut down. This was the forbidden topic, which is directed energy weapons. It was said to not exist. It was said to be a conspiracy. It was said it couldn't happen. It said it couldn't be done. And I understand.
Wait, pause for 1 sec. So, because this could get us shut down, and since Zertis isn't here and CAmbell left, I'm going to shut down on both of his channels, and we will just be live on my 2 remaining channels. So I will post the links on that and fully continue aspect of it.
The forbidden word, man. The forbidden word. The H word.
Yeah.
Do not say it. It's like Voldemort, but harp. So I'm not blaming harp. Harp is just the go-to word that everybody talks about. Again, harp is the high frequency active aurora research program up in Alaska, does ionospheric research, and it can heat little pockets in the atmosphere and ionosphere up above harp. It's not controlling your mind in Australia, and it's not fracturing the earth in Turkey. Okay, we can rule those things out for harp, I think, personally. But what I found, this goes back to 2011, and I noticed this quite by accident. This actually started on New Year's Eve of 2010 going into 2011. On New Year's Eve, thousands of animals fell out of the sky. Thousands of birds fell out of the sky in Greenbrier, BB, Arkansas. And they exploded from the inside. They were cooked. They tried to blame it on fireworks at first, but it turns out there was no fireworks done in the area for New Year's. And this was in a rural area in Greenbrier, BB, where they're doing a lot of oil and gas drilling. So I was thinking it could have been something to do with maybe an oil and gas release, maybe some kind of toxic chemical made its way out and the birds inhaled it or something and exploded the birds, burned them inside. I don't know. And within a couple days of that happening, of the birds falling out of the sky, and it was like 10,000 birds. It wasn't just a couple. It was whole towns were covered in birds, guys. It was a lot. And within a couple days, a series of thousands of earthquakes then hit at Greenbrier, BB, Arkansas, right next to where the birds turned up dead on New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. So I got a little suspicious or whatever, and I decided to go see if there was any weird weather in the area that could justify all the birds somehow exploding internally, and also explain the earthquakes. Maybe we could find something going on with earthquakes there, could explain maybe a gas release from the hydrogen sulfide or something coming out of the ground that kill all the birds. So I go to the radar and I go look at Greenbrier, and coming out of the area just north of Greenbrier, BB, Arkansas, right at the NEXRAD radar station, the NEXRAD radar station is pulsing in bright red. It looks like a giant red storm over 500 square miles. It's the whole radar pulsing in a giant ring at once, instead of a beam going around, instead of the rotating dish like you would see from a NEXRAD radar going around. This was one giant pulse coming up from the center of the dish and going out to the perimeter of the radar station, 500 square miles in all directions.
It looked like a flower when it was going
giant
up.
Red signature looked like a storm. And I made a video on it and put it out. People said I was faking it. They said I must be photoshopping it. And I was like, what? I'm like, here's the link, dude. And they came back and said, no, you're not faking it. You're actually just seeing a switch between clear air mode and precipitation mode. It's nothing. And I said, no, this is staying in precipitation mode the whole time. I'm sorry, it's staying in clear air mode the whole time. They're pulsing this thing, but it's going out all at once. I don't understand how this is happening, because we're talking about a dish that goes around inside of the NEXRAD. It's a microwave dish. Well, what I found out, long story short, within 72 hours of me making that video, a tornado formed and went and hit the center of the transmitter where the pulse came from originally. So birds die. Pulse, I go to check the day later, and there's this pulse happening. There's earthquakes happening there, and then the tornado forms and hits the center of the transmitter. Now, that happened about 1,500 more times at every radar station across the entire country, including Hawaii and Puerto Rico. The earthquakes, the animal deaths, the pulses, and the storm hitting the center of the pulse within 72 hours. Now, what's going on there with the pulse, I found out this has to do with tuning of the klystron, which is a very complex term. The klystron is a tube that's in there that's powering the radar. It's amping up the power, basically, from a little bit of power. When you read the NEXRAD description for the weather radar, it tells you they're using 7 clothing irons worth of power. What a description, right? For the housewives who are reading, I guess that's going to make sense. 7 clothing irons worth of power going in, and then they, quote unquote, well, they don't say that, zap it up, but the klystron zaps it up in a chamber of its own, a separate resonance chamber that increases the power up to 750,000 watts of peak transmission power from the klystron tube. And I found a training video from the National Weather Service last month about how to tune the klystron tube and what frequencies are producing this giant pulse that I'm seeing, that I was seeing and we still see. And it turns out that the NEXRAD pulses when they're tuning the klystron in megahertz, not gigahertz. Now, this matters. This ties in with HAARP. This is how NEXRAD radar rings got the term SLAME HAARP rings, because HAARP is operating 0 to 10 megahertz at the most, up to 10 megahertz, but they can go lower. HAARP can go lower down in say, single megahertz. And NEXRAD is pulsing up to 19 megahertz. Different methods for tuning the klystron depending on which tube you get from who makes the tube. Apparently, there's different levels, and it's like 17 megahertz or 19 megahertz. And in the training video, it goes over right down to the very fine points. And in the training video, they say their goal is to create the most output. The guy starts out in the National Weather Service training video. The goal is to achieve the peak power output of 750,000 watts. So what they're doing is they're pulsing. The big pulse, not the beam, but just a big, huge red pulse, is high frequency pulsing. And they're turning the dish all the way up to its highest tilt. Instead of pointing out like this, going around and around, or like this, it's tilted as high as they can get it to get it out as far as it can reach. And the whole dish turns into a high frequency antenna when the klystron is put into its calibration phase, how to calibrate the klystron. And what happens is the NEXRAD dish is as wide as a high frequency antenna would be in your backyard. If you're doing high frequency, a 19 megahertz transmission in your backyard with a shortwave radio, but it's 750,000 watts and it vibrates. And I found, and this is my own findings on HAARP, they found that, this isn't my findings. I mean, I found the findings from HAARP where they found that the resonance vibrates back and forth for up to 3 days from HAARP up in Alaska with 1 billion watts. So this is more like 1 million watts. So it's 1 million times less powerful than HAARP. But the NEXRAD radar only has to cover a few hundred square miles around the transmitter where the next one picks up. And it turns out they overlap the stations perfectly. And then we can get into Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden and Scalar and what happens when you cross beams and Scalar. Scalar when we get into CERN. CERN's doing Scalar. CERN over in Switzerland is taking banks of these klystrons, and they'll take a small particle of iron that they strip off like you do with your monoatomic gold. They will strip off a particle of iron. A company does this for them and presents it to them already. They don't do this at CERN. They get basically a version of that, but it's in a powder form. And they shoot a small, tiny particle of iron or whatever using microwaves. Banks of klystrons, hundreds of klystrons hooked up in daisy chain to one another, where they put in a little power, and out the other end comes picowatts, which is an insane amount of energy. And then they have two banks of these. One beam goes one way around klystron, or the klystron beam goes one way around CERN this way. The other beam is going this way, and they collide. And where they collide, that's the scalar. And they call it the scalar Higgs boson that they're studying, where they collide the beams and shoot particles together. Same thing's done with the NexRad. But it's over a vast distance, and it's only 1 million watts, so it creates a tornado instead of ripping the Earth apart.
Yeah, they use electromagnetic resonance when they're doing that. Those cross frequencies are like
look for this, guys. Look for the radar stations to go into pulse mode. All you have to do is look at the non-quality control feed from the NexRad, and they censor these out, by the way. They take out the pulses, so you don't see them because they call them anomalies. Quality control, they call it. I'm sorry. Quality control, got to take it out. But if you look for the pulse, watch for the storm to hit within 72 hours. Hail, severe wind, damaging. The Weldon Springs NexRad radar here in St. Louis has been wind hit 100 times since I've been watching. 105. And the tornado forms and hits the center of the transmitter in the National Weather Service office when they don't misdirect it. And they can totally control it now. So they can stop the tornado as much as they can start it. But do they? No, usually don't. I've seen that they let it hit the National Weather Service office because they don't want to admit that they're causing the rotation to begin with to come into the center of the rotating transmitter that's transmitting 750,000. Anyway, that's called heartburns.
Because
I got in big trouble for talking
wouldn't
about
be a conspiracy anymore.
Guess who manages
and
the NexRad?
It's why you will always...
The U.S. Army. U.S. Army replaces all the components in your NexRad and the U.S. Air Force. At the Air Force Base, it's the Air Force guys. But it's the military. They maintain all the NexRads across the country because it's part of the WSR-88, Ronald Reagan's missile defense system from 1988, when they rolled out the NexRad radar in 88. It wasn't just coincidence. It's freaking Ronald Reagan missile defense, baby. We're shooting down that stuff as fast as we can with the scalar. And so...
Have you considered you were observed directed energy weapons warfare?
The DWO. The Directed Energy Weapons Warfare Office, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm saying what you witnessed. Have you considered that you were simply observing directed energy weapons warfare?
Oh yeah, definitely. It could even be that our radar stations.
It's a battle. That's what's. They're fighting each other. There's people fighting each other with directed energy weapons.
There could be a third party up above punking our radar. I've proposed this, that it might not be us causing the tornado to come to our transmitter at all. That it could be either from an outside source or even on the ground, somebody punking our radar, giving it too much energy in the electromagnetic field, doing the same thing, but from like hitting our radar with it. And then that causes a tornado to form and it comes in and hits us. It could be that too. Yeah, it definitely could be. It could also be in space. Yeah.
I'm obligated to inform you because of the dates that you threw out there and your question. You threw out that you said December to January 2010 to 2011, correct? I was at the South Pole Station and we were commissioning the Ice Cube neutrino detector from construction to operations and maintenance. We, if you check the dates for Christchurch and the earthquakes that happened then, we did that. You're talking about these systems. This is what I'm disclosing. The Ice Cube neutrino detector also transmits. It is the world's largest phased array transmitter. It is a directed energy weapons system. My crew caused the earthquakes in Christchurch because it was the first time they were firing it, and they were attempting to do something and they messed up. So they corrected fire. I don't doubt that the systems that you're talking about weren't hot and ready for us to do what we had to do. I'm certain everybody in that environment was paying attention to everything to get it dialed in correctly. If Bernie wants to go to my website in the archive section, he can pull up my DOM document, which is my evidence from the university. Basically, the manufacturer's specifications for the ice cube neutrino detector state that each of the 5,160 DOMs, each one of those DOMs can transmit at up to 2,047 volts AC.
I'm sitting here, I'm breaking out in a slight sweat. Hold on.
I'm trying to find people that understand what I'm saying, but most people I talk to about this,
I know. This man right here fully understands what you're saying.
Wow.
So, Eric,
you're
you
talking
want to get
into
a private chat to your website?
Oh, I'm full screen somehow. Did I click a button? I must have clicked a button. I think I'm full screen.
No, I did. I highlighted you.
Oh, okay. I'm like having a mind-blowing moment here. Like he's telling me, I'm like amazing. Wow.
So what you're saying is that's mass scale interferometry directed.
I imagine, I'm not as technical, but I gather I can extrapolate what you're getting at. Yes, they can basically take a signal and like move it around, increase it, do it direction. Yeah. But regardless, just like we know from Tesla and scalar waves, I mean, once you turn this thing on, it impacts the entire planet instantly. If they want to do that. I mean, that's the other thing about directed energy weapons, is that we have to really rearrange how our minds work. We can temporarily, we think about a weapon like a gun with a bullet in it and a particular caliber. And we're like, oh, it's a gun. What bullet does it shoot? Well, directed energy weapons aren't limited to a bullet. They can do all kinds of things.
Yep. They can change your...
Guys, we have to have a whole show just on this. I think we should do a whole show just on this topic at some point very soon here. Sure. I mean, like, because with
Jeremiah and Jeremy Reese, the alien scientist. This is exactly the technical group of. We will have the uber nerd out of nerdouts that connects all these great minds that understand these things and that have been working on it and experiencing it, and documenting it all, and bringing it together. For the last maybe 10 minutes here, Dutch, will end it exactly at 5 hours. But for all of those joining in that aren't aware of Dutch's epic, pretty much 2 decades, at least a decade and a half now, of daily monitoring the system of seismic energies and activities, and his beyond epic record of forecasting earthquakes and his weekly updates of them. Just give us a little rundown and this week's forecast, if you don't mind, good sir.
He has the system of all systems. He's got it figured out, that's for sure.
I'm just happy because I believe he's familiar with the earthquakes that happened in Christchurch back then.
Oh, yeah. You know, you mentioned the Christchurch earthquakes. That is very, very interesting because FEMA was down in Christchurch in the hours leading up to the Christchurch, and then they took off an hour before.
Back then?
Yeah. FEMA was down there just by chance, they said. Just by chance. By the way,
by
North Island.
Yeah. Yeah, by chance when we turn on the ice cube detector.
Yeah. I'm starting to get, we're going to have to, you and I have to talk. This is so intriguing to me about the neutrinos and everything. This is projecting and transmitting a phased array down in the ground. Man, we got to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the ELF is on as well. I confirmed that myself. There's an ELF system there that they state is off, but I went right to the breaker panel that supplies it. It's on.
That is. I mean, my God, I got to get down to Antarctica. You ready to go? Let's go. We're gonna get a cruise ship. I'm gonna get a cruise ship. We're gonna all go. They'll sink it, of course.
Let's contact Mr. Beast. for round 2 for him, he can pay for it. YouTube can pay for it.
Exactly. I would love to go down at some point, but I don't think they'll let me come back. Now, just real quick on the seismic, for instance, New Zealand, we had warned New Zealand, the North Island, for up to a 5.5, and warned the central part of the island of what we call the catcher's mitt position, which looks like a catcher's mitt here. And it just got hit within the past couple hours at 2 hours ago. A 5.3 to 5.5 just hit our warned area in New Zealand. You can check it off the list. That was one of the spots that we had issued the warning. But the way it goes is the earthquakes start down below the plates with the deep quakes, and then they spread out and away and spread across the planet. I've got a whole video on this. I don't want to bore everybody here on your stream with my kind of update, but I'll tell you, we are watching on the antipode to the opposite side of the planet for new 7.0 level activity that we were watching for last week. I haven't issued the forecast on this yet. This is going to be in my new forecast in the next few days. Probably today or tomorrow, I'll be issuing the forecast. And we're going to issue a new warning for a 7 to strike in Greece over here on the west side, far over from Turkey. And it's the antipode of the 7 down here. And this gets to the whole opposite sides of Earth thing again. This gets into what happens when it goes through the planet and comes out the opposite side. But we're already moving down here. New Zealand already got hit. New Zealand's North Island's been hit. And it's going to go through the planet, and we're going to see new activity on the opposite side. Again, back and forth like a tennis match. But it really, I think, this gets into the neutrino detector and what's down in the plates. This gets into very low frequency and transmitting through the ground. Piezoelectric energy going through the crust. And that's just, my God, we could go on and on. But the forecast is going to call for that. My current forecast also calls for Northern California to be on watch for a new 5. That's not a big deal. We got 5s already coming in and 4s off the coast. That's not that big of a deal for California. The one where everybody, Alaska. Well, actually, it should strike east of you in Yukon, where the 2 rings are overlapping over here in Canada. So just east of Alaska, we should see a new 5.5 in the next 4 to 5 days. Break off right here where the 2 rings overlap. That I think that's Yukon. If not, that's right at the Alaska border. Right, Alaska technically comes down all the way down into here, but and then over to the west, the Aleutians. We're out back in the Aleutians, but right now, I think let's look at the smaller earthquakes. This is a real-time forecast, guys. So for my guy up here in Alaska, we have a line of earthquakes coming off. It looks like a ramp jumping up into Mount McKinley of just hundreds and hundreds in the last 2 days. This is a big increase in the number of earthquakes up in Alaska. We call that a frequency increase. So like we're kind of, if we were beating a drum, right? If we were beating a drum, we've now rolled into a snare drum roll. And there's so many, but this is next to a volcano right at the ocean. And I think that's Mount Sitka. Mount Sitka, I believe this is the name. I'm going on memory. We may see a new volcanic blast in the next week out here at Mount Veniaminoff. I don't normally forecast eruptions, but with all the seismic going on here, I'm thinking new blast out at Veniaminoff. Then after Veniaminoff, that's right out here where my mouse is, a new 5, which shouldn't be that big of a deal either. It'll be out in the ocean next to a volcano that just erupted. But the middle of the whole mess is where I'm going to look. And that's how we do forecast. And we look like it's like a wave in a wave tank. And we look to the middle of the wave tank where all the waves are interfering. And that's the spot where the next spot to break takes place. I don't know. I could go on for hours trying to explain it. Simply put, we're going to see a new quake up here in the 5.0 range. And my skeptics would always say, who cares? Right? They don't care on small earthquakes. We only care on big earthquakes. And so 7 over in Greece, it'll be the first 7 in a year or more for the whole area down there. And it will likely cause some serious damage, unfortunately. That's the part that sucks about having to report on this shit. Those are the ones that we pray
that you're actually wrong on, right?
I know. Right?
It's like those.
If I'm right, it sucks. And if I'm wrong,
we gotta catch at that 5% inaccuracy. You pray they don't happen, right? But he called it now.
It's like energy.
We get like
it never disappears. It'll go somewhere else, but it never goes away. So like if I miss, if I'm warning Turkey and a 7 doesn't hit in Turkey, then on the opposite side of the planet, the 7 hits exactly. That's where the energy went. It didn't hit in Turkey. It went through or around and came out at the opposite down on the other side on the antipode. And now we've got on both sides of Earth 2 7s in a course of 5 days apart. So the energy always transfers. It never goes away. So,
well, that brings me to my question. When it's bouncing back and forth in its antipode, does it actually ramp up and then like escalate onto another place rather than going from a 7? It goes to, say, a 7.5 and reverberates into another spot?
Yes, we see it increase when we pump in new deep earthquakes. When new deep earthquakes are added into that, it's like adding more energy into the mix that's already coming through. So in other words, like an earthquake, 7 hits in Turkey, energy's coming through or around the planet, I don't know which, but whatever way, it's coming to the other side, and then a bunch of new deep earthquakes hammer on the other side where the 7's going to hit, and that then amps it up. Yes, it amps it up. Amp is the perfect word. Amplitude is increased as we pump more energy into the accordion-like wave that's going back and forth. I think it could be going back and forth between points through this, the round Earth, but it could be a disk Earth or a faceted jewel Earth, or well, it could be a matrix Earth. We might not be here at all, guys. I'm out of here later.
Yeah. Thanks for answering the question there, Dutch.
Much love, dude. Much love.
It is oops, sorry, trash can Earth, both round and flat. Come on, there we go. Did it work? Did it work? Is it going back? My computer's sucking. All right. Trash can Earth. There we go. Trash can Earth, round and flat.
I like it.
And
flat
so
all
Dutch
the way around.
Dutch is the one person that when he's wrong, he actually, or his forecast doesn't happen, he's able to go back in and analyze and figure out where that energy is, and 10 out of 10 times show exactly where it is and puts it immediately into his next up. He usually will type it like, "Hey guys, I found where it went," and it's that it reaffirms the just how real your system is, and that it's the actual energies and flow and waves of just how the Earth works, but that, like you said, it doesn't disappear. Energy will always go somewhere else, and that you always find.
Oh, definitely. The energy always goes somewhere. And I also am the only forecaster in the world who comes back and beats himself up when he gets it wrong. I wish the National Weather Service would do that. And same with the NOAA Hurricane Forecasting Services. When I get it wrong, I will not issue a new forecast. I will get out the whips, like they use in the Mideast, and they're like beating themselves up for being bad. I'm going to do that for myself. And but I seriously take it serious. When I miss an area, I will not issue a new forecast for that area until I figure out where it's like a flood. If you saw a big storm drop a bunch of rain and then the river starts to flood and you're like, dude, it's going to flood downstream. You go downstream and you're standing there and it doesn't show up. You're going to wonder which way it went. You're not going to think the water evaporated, right? You'll be like, oh shit, it went down that other flow down that way and it didn't go to where I was expecting. It went to somewhere else, but it never disappears. And that's kind of like what it's like. It's like a flowing river of seismic wave, a very low frequency wave going through the plates, which is why I've got to talk to Eric about the neutrino detector now. God, another thing. This is the last thing I need on top of CERN, brother.
Eric, you don't know the frequency of the ELF, do you? That they're producing?
No, I do not. I just know that it's on.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's working both ways as well.
That's so cool to know.
Which is unfortunate. Very unfortunate for the crew, what's going on down there. Unbeknownst to most of the hands on site, is what they're riding on top of is not to their benefit. And it has a lot to do with my disclosure because I know it's a new term for everybody else, Havana syndrome. But when you're at a directed energy weapons facility...
Just about to bring that up. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, so this is part of why I'm coming out, because it's not fair what they're doing to people.
Yeah, they're
Oh God.
they're reprogramming their electrical firing rate in their brain through ELF is basically what they're doing, and all kinds of other aspects. You can create cancer. You can lots of things can go on.
You can go back in the news. My winter site manager lost her mind. And I would say it was also because we were firing up the ice cube neutrino detector and they weren't sure how it was going to impact locals. So she made the news because she was trying to get herself evac during the winter season. She was claiming she had a stroke. The only thing she knew was she was effed up and she was trying to figure out what was the matter with her. And she got scared. This is our winter site manager. She was calling for an evac. She was the one that knew the evacs were. When she hired me on, she drilled into me like, you can't leave, right? And I was like, this is the lady that hired me. And then now she was trying to run out of the ice. And I would say that she did not have a stroke. When she got off of the ice and she went to Johns Hopkins University, they agreed with my assessment. She did not have a stroke. Something happened to her. She was hurt and wanted to leave. I understand the mentality and the situation. But yeah, I feel bad for my crew. I feel bad for my crew, and I feel bad for the people of this planet that do not understand the level of warfare that's happening around us right now.
Yep.
For those who don't know, the Havana syndrome is what he's talking about. Just to, you don't know that down in Cuba, the U.S. government has now officially admitted this, but they denied it for years. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden talked about it in the 80s, that the Russians and others have high-power microwaves and other radio devices that they use to penetrate walls, penetrate buildings, and penetrate your body. And high-power microwaves, high-power radio waves can severely affect your psyche, your bodily functions, and even induce sicknesses such as pneumonia and COVID even can be simulated with high-power microwaves. That's why the 5G talk and all that crap came in. But anyway, Havana syndrome, wow, man, we got to talk.
I would love to.
I have some information from Thomas Bearden and certain quotes from papers that he wrote before. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read a small one. Scalar EM is the brainchild of Lieutenant Colonel retired Thomas E. Bearden, a systems analyst and wargame specialist who's been advocating a view of electromagnetics which is based on the notion of a vast, unseen background of scalar energies as opposed to vector energies, which underlie all physical reality. So it's very connected to what is going on up in Antarctica and a lot of other places, like the H word that we won't say. And, interferometry is basically the basis of that technology and ground electron pumping, I guess you could say. So, yeah, it's dangerous stuff, definitely. Affects brainwaves as well. That's something that could definitely be gone into.
If you go to dtic.mil, which is discover.dtic.mil, which is the military's repository for all their information. Again, it's Defense Technical Information Center from the U.S. government. So, I mean, if you're going to the site, it's a .mil website. It's a military website. But if you go to dtic.mil, discovery.d, I'll post it into the chat room, and you search Bearden, Bearden, you're going to find a bunch of papers by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden on file in the DTIC talking about the use of radio waves for influencing your mind and for weather modification and for missile defense and a bunch of other stuff that he wrote and all kinds of weird stuff. Psychotronic warfare, using directed energy weapons, using microwaves, planting thoughts in your brain, making you hear things, hear voices at a distance. This is all, he wrote papers from the U.S. Missile Command on the topic. So go check it out. If you get a chance, go over to dtic.mil, search Bearden, and you will find it.
He even brings up the fact that he could, well, not him, but the technology can affect people on a mass scale, making them melancholy or to that state where you really just don't care about what's going on around you. So definitely interesting tech.
Like when there was mass uprisings, like the Arab Spring in the Middle East back in 2011, that I was alive, but it was him or someone else, retired military, and claimed that it was them using satellites projecting down specific radio frequencies on this certain area in the Middle East there that then triggered everybody to be more angry. And when they brought them out on the protest,
breaking up,
disappearing. Okay, I'm losing signal. We're 5 hours deep. We're 5 hours deep, and we will be doing this again. We should do this on a weekly thing. And Eric, Gerald, Michael, all of you actually are invited back next week, next Thursday evening, with myself, Jeremy Reese, Jeremiah, alien scientist Jeremy Reese, and the amazing Walter Bosley. If you know who he is, another great mind and individual that we will be going deep into UFOs, anti-gravitics, different higher dimensional physics and scalar technologies, waves, and all of the rest. So hopefully we can have you back for that, Dutch. And we will be definitely doing another one with Paul Cook right away, and with the Hutchinsons. And Eric, I'm going to make sure I email you for the next Jeremy Reese Alien Scientist stream I do. And Gerald, you were supposed to be on last night. I think we miscommunicated for our electro culture. Here now. As soon as it ended, I saw Dutch. I hassled him. We're here. Now I'm going to sleep, so I probably won't be doing a stream tonight on Electroculture. We'll do it very soon. Exactly.
All good,
much
brother.
love.
It's all good,
everybody.
Man. I understand completely.
It was a pleasure meeting all of you guys. Eric, Gerald, Bernie, thank you. You guys just so generous, very kind. I can't wait to pick your brains on everything. I've saved this as a video. I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel so everybody can watch it back in its full glory. It'll be great.
Wow. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It was good meeting you. I can't wait to pick your brain, Eric, and Dutchsinse. Like I said, I've been watching you since 2011, man. So, you know, it's good to finally meet you. And Bernie, well, I know you already, so I'm just kidding, brother. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, brother. It's going to be good when you come out to Calgary. And first, I'm sharing Gerald's channel right now in the live chat, and then I'm going to be sharing Dutchsinse channel in the live chat. But I'm pretty sure everybody, at least half my subscribers, came from you, Dutch. So, but for the other half, if you don't have Dutchsinse, you're definitely going to want to subscribe to Dutch, especially if you're traveling to an area that is prone to earthquakes, as his expertise is like no other. And as I'm stuttering and flailing, I'm also trying to look up Eric's channel, which is Deciphering My Experience, I believe.
Deciphering.tv.
Okay, yeah, so you run your own streaming websites at deciphering.tv. And what's
awesome.
I got an archive section there with the documents for the stuff that I've been putting out there so that, you know, everybody knows I'm legit. I'm not just making stuff up. I was really down in Antarctica. I really documented stuff, and there's a real problem that we really need to discuss.
That's awesome. That's great. I'll make sure I share it as much as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to talking, and anybody can pick my brain anytime they want.
Great. I look forward to seeing you again.
One last fact that I have to throw in. With earthquakes, with what Eric said about them firing up the neutrino thing and the New Zealand earthquake happening in correlation to that, it was also when they first fired up CERN to its most highest potential level that on the opposite side, the Mongolia earthquake happened on the exact antipode of it at the exact same time that they fired it up. And I had the pleasure of talking and bringing that up with Nassim Haramein in person one time. And he was like, "You're the only other person in the world that recognized that." I was like, well, in this room, but there's more of us, just like Dutch, Eric, and Gerald. Thank you all.
Isn't that where they blew this? Isn't that when they blew the super magnets and had to shut down for a couple of years to rebuild the system because they had outputted so much? Yeah, it might have been. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that was. They blew the magnets, then they did it again, and they blamed it on a weasel getting into the power supply.
The weasel.
The weasel.
Yeah. I love that clip. That was from
a lot of these systems. They integrate them so that, you know, something at the South Pole, something in Alaska, you know, each system can do a multitude of things itself, right? But then when you combine it and you integrate it with this system over here and this system over here, and then we put this one to this setting and this one to this setting, and yeah, I think what Dutch is up to makes a lot of sense to be able to follow the energies around the planet, because I guarantee that there's facilities that are like, hey, we're going to move our beam this way, you move your beam this way, we're going to cross over here, and let's see what happens. And then, oops, what? Oh, sorry, Christchurch.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then they escalate it and turn it into all-out weather warfare, and don't give two Fs about nature, the natural workings of things, or all of us citizens that, hey, if you F something up, it's all screwed, we don't know how to fix it. And is that why there's such reports as supposedly the inner core stopped spinning or whatever the heck, but everything being wiki-wonky? And on that note,
I think
we're 5 hours in.
I think fair enough.
All right, last thoughts, Eric. Last thoughts. Last words.
Responsible for Turkey. I think the South Pole Station destroyed Turkey, and this is a shame that the
timing.
We've moved the battlefield into the civilian world. War has always been an attack on the resources of a nation, but we did it indirectly, remotely on the battlefield through the medium of soldiers. We've changed the face of war on this planet. We've removed the soldiers. We're attacking the people and the resources directly. This is a new chapter in hell.
Yep.
Well said. That's well said.
Yep. I'll add to that as my last comment. I believe that 12,500 years ago, we did something similar, created scalar wars, and destroyed that which we were all connected to. Maybe call it Tartaria, call it Atlantis, call it both, if you will. But I believe that this is similar to what's happening prior. That's my end.
I agree.
That's actually fascinating you say that, Gerald. Farsight remote viewing, they kind of did a remote viewing session on that time frame and the underwater runes that they found off of the Azore Islands as well as off of Antarctica, the big grid things, and that's just essentially what they described. But on that note, we're going to talk more about it in the next epic stream. 5 hours of world-changing science knowledge drops, disclosure, discovery, and intellectual discussion. We're going to re-release this in some edited hour sessions. But until then, love you all. Catch you on the next one.
This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, we seem to be here and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one. Or
Cosmic resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
you know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
Because Michelle Gibson, excellent other researcher who we just did a live with yesterday, our newest episode together, and I just wanted to show that for everybody and that episode, and post the link for it in the live chat so that if you still needs some now that oh, is it even gonna let me? There we go. It's let me share. Here it is. This is what it looks like, and this is, if it's working, is the link in live chat, and lots of so.
You still on air, bro?
CAMBell yesterday. I don't know. Of course it freezes. Doesn't let me do anything. Here we go. Finally, a ta-ta.